When a billionaire widow's world shatters at 2:14 a.m., a single father's promise will pull him into a marriage he never wanted, and a custody battle that could destroy them both. What starts as grief becomes something far more dangerous when cold-hearted grandparents move to rip a little girl from the only home she has left. A marriage of convenience, a family built on broken promises, and two people who never expected to need each other. Stay until the end to see how this story unfolds. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The phone rang at 2:14 in the morning. Adrien Vale knew before he answered. Nobody calls at that hour with good news. His hand fumbled across the nightstand, knocking over an empty coffee mug, his heart already racing in that animal way your body has of understanding disaster before your brain catches up. "Mr. Vale?" The voice was professional, detached, the kind of voice that delivered bad news for a living. "This is Officer Mendez with the Vermont State Police. I'm calling about Marcus Rowan." Adrien sat up fast enough to make his head spin. Through the wall, he could hear his son Eli's steady breathing in the next room. The house was dark except for the green numbers on the microwave bleeding through from the kitchen. "What happened?" "There's been an accident. Route 7, just north of Middlebury. Black ice. His vehicle left the road around midnight." "I'm very sorry, Mr. Vale. He didn't make it." The words hit like physical blows. Adrien opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His hand gripped the phone hard enough to hurt. "Mr. Vale? Are you there?" "Yeah." His voice sounded like someone else's. "Yeah, I'm here. We tried to reach Mrs. Rowan first, but there was no answer. You're listed as the emergency contact. We need someone to—" "I'll handle it." Adrien was already standing, pulling on jeans in the dark. "I'll tell her. Don't send anyone to the house. I'll do it." He hung up without waiting for a response. For maybe 30 seconds, Adrien just stood there in his bedroom, pants half on, phone still in his hand. The heat hadn't kicked on yet, and the air was cold enough to see his breath. Outside, February wind rattled the windows. Vermont in winter. Marcus used to joke about it. Used to say the cold was God's way of making sure only the stubborn survived up here. Used to. Past tense now. Adrien finished getting dressed. His hands shook as he buttoned his flannel shirt. He'd known Marcus Rowan for 11 years. They'd met at a job site. Adrien doing electrical work, Marcus there to inspect the property he was buying. Most guys with that kind of money wouldn't have given him the time of day, but Marcus wasn't like that. He'd rolled up his sleeves and helped Adrien run wire for 4 hours, asking questions, making jokes, treating him like an equal. They'd been best friends ever since, and now Adrien had to go tell Marcus's wife that she was a widow. He checked on Eli before he left. His son was 8, sprawled across his bed the way kids sleep, completely boneless, face smashed into the pillow, one leg hanging off the mattress. Adrien stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching him breathe. Then he grabbed his coat and keys and stepped out into the night. The cold hit him like a slap. His truck was covered in a thin layer of ice, the windshield fogged white. He scraped it off with numb fingers, his breath coming in clouds. The street was empty, most of the houses dark. Normal people were asleep at this hour. Normal people weren't about to destroy someone's life with a phone call they'd just received. The drive to the Rowan house took 20 minutes. Adrien knew the way by heart. He'd been there hundreds of times over the years. Barbecues in summer, football games in fall, helping Marcus install new windows last spring. It was a big place, set back from the road on 10 acres of woods and meadow. Old money. The kind of house that had been in Celeste's family for generations, though she never acted like it mattered. The lights were off when he pulled up the long driveway. His headlights swept across the front of the house, stone and timber, covered in snow, perfectly quiet. Like nothing was wrong. Like the world hadn't just split in half. Adrien sat in his truck for a full minute, engine running, trying to figure out what the hell he was going to say. There was no good way to do this. No magic words that would make it hurt less. Finally, he killed the engine and got out. The walkway to the front door had been shoveled recently. Probably Marcus before he left, before he got in his car and drove north on a road that would kill him. Adrien rang the doorbell, then immediately felt stupid. It was almost 3 in the morning. He should have called first. But calling seemed worse somehow. This kind of news needed to be delivered in person. He was about to ring again when a light came on inside. Through the frosted glass panel beside the door, he saw movement. A shadow approaching. The door opened. Celeste Rowan stood there in sweatpants and an old college sweatshirt, her dark hair pulled back, her face creased from sleep. She blinked at him, confused but not alarmed yet, not understanding. "Adrien, what are you—" Then she stopped. She saw his face, saw whatever was written there. "Where's Marcus?" He should have prepared something, should have thought about how to say it, but standing there looking at her, all the careful words dissolved. "There was an accident," he said. "Black ice on Route 7. Celeste, I'm so sorry. He didn't make it." She didn't move, didn't react at all for what felt like forever. Just stood there in the doorway with the warm light from inside spilling out around her and the cold February wind blowing her hair across her face. Then something changed in her expression. Not grief, not yet. Just a kind of hollow recognition, like she'd always known this moment was coming, and now here it finally was. "No," she said quietly. "I'm sorry." "No." Louder this time. Her hand gripped the doorframe. "No, he went to check on the property in Burlington. He was coming back tomorrow morning. He texted me at 11. He said, 'I know.' So he's not—" Her voice cracked. "You're wrong. They made a mistake. It was someone else's car, or—" "Celeste." Adrien took a step closer, not touching her, but close enough that she had to look at him. "The state police called me. It was Marcus. I'm sorry." She made a sound then. Not quite a sob, not quite a scream, something in between. Her legs went out from under her and Adrien caught her before she hit the ground. He'd never held Celeste before. Marcus's wife. Off limits in every way that mattered. But now she was collapsing against him, her whole body shaking, and he didn't know what else to do except hold her up. "I've got you," he said uselessly. "I've got you." They stood there in the doorway, cold air pouring in, neither of them moving. Celeste's hands clutched the front of his coat. She was trying to breathe and not quite managing it, each inhale coming in sharp gasps. From somewhere inside the house, a small voice called out, "Mama?" Celeste went rigid. She pulled back from Adrien, wiping her face with shaking hands. "Ivy, she'll hear. She can't—" She looked at Adrien with wild eyes. "What do I tell her? Adrien, what do I tell my daughter?" He didn't have an answer. Celeste's daughter appeared at the top of the stairs. She was 4 years old, wearing pajamas covered in cartoon stars, her blonde hair a tangled mess around her face. She looked so much like Marcus it hurt to see her. "Mama?" Ivy repeated, starting down the stairs. "Why is Mr. Adrien here?" Celeste looked at Adrien one more time, lost, drowning. Then she took a breath and walked to the stairs, meeting her daughter halfway. "Come here, baby." She picked Ivy up, even though the girl was getting too big for it. "Mama needs to talk to you about something." Adrien stayed by the door. He should leave. This was private, family. But Celeste looked back at him and shook her head slightly. "Don't go." So he stayed. He watched Celeste carry her daughter to the living room couch, watched her sit down and pull Ivy into her lap, watched her try 3 times to find words before anything came out. "You know how Daddy went to Burlington?" Celeste's voice was steady, too steady, the kind of steady that would break any second. "To check on the building he was working on?" Ivy nodded against her mother's chest. "There was an accident on the road, and Daddy, he got hurt. Very badly." Celeste's voice finally cracked. "He's not coming home, baby. I'm so sorry. He's not coming home." Ivy was quiet for a moment, then, "Is he at the hospital?" "No, sweetheart." "When will he come home?" "He won't." Celeste was crying now, silently, tears running down her face. "He can't. He died, Ivy. Do you understand? Daddy died." Adrien had to look away. He stared at the floor, at his boots leaving melting ice on the hardwood, at anything except the little girl processing the worst news of her life. "I want Daddy," Ivy said. "I know. I want him now." "I know, baby. I know." Ivy started crying then. Not the dramatic wailing of a tantrum, but something quieter and worse, the kind of crying that understood, at least partly, that something fundamental had broken and wouldn't be fixed. Adrien stood useless by the door while Celeste held her daughter and rocked her and whispered things he couldn't hear. Outside, the sky was starting to lighten at the edges. Dawn coming, whether anyone wanted it or not. Eventually, Ivy cried herself into exhaustion and fell asleep in her mother's arms. Celeste sat there on the couch, staring at nothing, her daughter's weight pressed against her chest. Adrien finally moved. He walked quietly to the living room, not sure what he was doing, but unable to just stand there anymore. "Do you want me to take her upstairs?" he asked softly. Celeste looked up at him. Her face was blotchy and wet, her eyes red. She nodded. Adrien carefully lifted Ivy from her mother's arms. The girl stirred but didn't wake, just turned her face into his shoulder. He carried her up the stairs to her bedroom. He knew which one. He'd helped Marcus paint it last summer, and laid her in bed. She looked so small, so fragile. He pulled the blanket up to her chin and stood there for a moment, watching her breathe. When he came back downstairs, Celeste was standing at the living room window, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the property. At the woods Marcus would never walk through again. At the meadow where they'd planned to build a treehouse this spring. "I need to call his parents," she said without turning around. "They're in Florida. They need to know." "I can do that." "No." She shook her head. "It should be me." "Celeste, I'm his wife." Her voice was flat. "I should be the one to tell them their son is dead." Adrien didn't argue. He just stood there while she picked up her phone with shaking hands and dialed. He listened to her voice crack as she told Marcus's mother what had happened. Listened to the moment when she had to pull the phone away from her ear because the screaming on the other end was too much. When she finally hung up, she stood there holding the phone, staring at it like she didn't recognize what it was. "They're flying up tomorrow," she said quietly. They need to arrange the funeral. His mother kept saying, my baby, like he was still." She stopped, swallowed. "I didn't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I have to say a lot of things. I have to call the lawyer. I have to call the insurance. I have to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do now." She finally turned to look at him. "How do I do this, Adrien? How do I explain to my daughter that her father is never coming back? How do I get through tomorrow and the day after and all the days that come next?" He wanted to have answers. Wanted to say something that would help. But there was nothing. So he just said, "One day at a time." She laughed. It was a terrible sound. "Everyone's going to say that, aren't they? One day at a time. Take it slow. He's in a better place now. All the useless things people say because they don't know what else to do." "Yeah, probably. And I'm supposed to smile and thank them and act like it helps." She looked at him, really looked at him. "You're the only one who didn't lie to me. You didn't say it would be okay. You didn't say time heals. You just told me the truth." Adrien didn't know what to say to that. Celeste walked to the couch and sat down heavily. She looked exhausted, hollowed out. "There was this moment last week. We were having breakfast and Ivy spilled orange juice everywhere and Marcus was trying to clean it up and she was crying and I was late for a meeting and I remember thinking, I wish I could fast forward through this morning. Just skip past the mess and the stress and get to the easy part." She wiped her eyes. "And now I'd give anything to go back. To have one more messy morning, one more moment of him being annoyed about orange juice." Adrien sat down in the chair across from her. "You want me to stay? Until the sun comes up at least?" She nodded. So he stayed. They didn't talk much. Celeste made coffee at some point, her hands still shaking as she measured out grounds. Adrien sat at the kitchen table and watched the sky lighten outside. Neither of them mentioned the fact that in a few hours the world would expect them to function, to make decisions, to plan a funeral. Around 6, Celeste's phone started ringing. Word was getting out. Friends, family, people who'd heard. She looked at the screen and then turned the phone face down on the counter. "I can't," she said. "Not yet." "You don't have to." His parents are going to want to be involved in everything. They're going to want to plan the service their way. Catholic Church. Full Mass. All the things Marcus never cared about. She picked up her coffee cup and then set it down without drinking. "We talked about this once. After his brother died, he said he didn't want anything formal, just people who loved him, saying goodbye on their own terms. But his mother won't allow that. She'll make it about her grief, not his life." "Then you fight for what he wanted." "With what energy?" She looked at him. "I can barely stand up right now. I can't fight his mother. I can't fight anyone." Adrien thought about that. About Marcus, who'd always been the buffer between Celeste and his parents. who'd handled their expectations and their demands and their need to control everything. Without him, she was exposed. "You don't have to fight alone," he said. Celeste gave him a sad smile. "That's kind of you. But you have your own life, your own kid. You can't put everything on hold to help me deal with Marcus's family." Before Adrien could respond, they heard footsteps on the stairs. Ivy appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her pajamas, her face swollen from crying. "Is Daddy really not coming back?" she asked. Celeste's face crumpled, but she held it together. "No, baby. He's not." "Did I do something bad?" "What? No, sweetheart, no." Celeste knelt down and pulled her daughter close. "This isn't your fault. Nothing about this is your fault. Daddy loved you so much. The accident was just, it was bad luck, bad weather. It wasn't because of anything you did." Ivy didn't look convinced. She stood there in her mother's arms, small and uncertain, looking for an explanation that would make sense of something that never would. Adrien found himself speaking. "Hey, Ivy, you remember when we built that birdhouse in the garage? You, me, and your dad?" The girl looked at him and nodded slowly. "You remember how your dad kept measuring the pieces wrong and we had to start over 3 times? A tiny smile. "He said the wood was broken." "Right. He blamed the wood. And then you told him he was using the ruler upside down." "He laughed really loud." "He did, because you were right and he was being stubborn." Adrien leaned forward. "Your dad loved you more than anything in the world, Ivy, every single day, and nothing about what happened changes that, okay?" Ivy thought about this. Then, "Where did he go?" "I don't know," Adrien said honestly. "Nobody really knows. But I know he'd want you to be brave, and I know your mom needs you right now. Can you do that? Can you be brave?" She nodded. "Good girl." Celeste looked at him over her daughter's head. Something passed between them. Not gratitude exactly. More like recognition, like she saw him clearly for the first time. The next few days blurred together. Adrien went home eventually, explained to Eli what had happened, held his son while he cried for his Uncle Marcus. Then he went back to work because bills didn't care about grief. But every evening he stopped by the Rowan house, brought food, checked if they needed anything. Mostly just sat there while Celeste dealt with the endless phone calls and paperwork that came with death. Marcus's parents arrived and immediately tried to take over. His mother, Gloria, was a small woman with sharp eyes and an ironclad sense of how things should be done. His father, Richard, was quieter, but just as immovable. They stayed at a hotel in town and showed up at the house every morning with lists and plans and expectations. Adrien was there the day they arrived. He'd come to fix a pipe that had frozen overnight. He was under the sink in the kitchen when he heard Gloria's voice in the living room. "We've scheduled the service for Saturday at St. Catherine's. Father Murphy agreed to say the Mass. The burial will be at Riverside Cemetery afterward." "Marcus didn't want a Catholic service," Celeste said quietly. "Of course he did. He was raised in the church. He left the church when he was 20. He told me specifically he didn't want a formal funeral." "You're grieving, dear. You're not thinking clearly." Gloria's voice had that particular tone of someone who thought they were being kind while completely dismissing you. Marcus would want to be laid to rest properly, with his faith. He didn't have that faith anymore. Nevertheless, it's not nevertheless. Celeste's voice rose. "It's his funeral, his wishes, and he made them very clear to me." "Did he put that in writing?" Silence. "I didn't think so," Gloria continued. "As his mother, I have every right. As his widow, I have more." Adrien heard something break. Maybe a glass. Maybe the last thread of Celeste's composure. "How dare you speak to me that way? I lost my son. And I lost my husband. And Ivy lost her father. We don't get to measure grief, Gloria. We just have to survive it." Adrien climbed out from under the sink. He found them in the living room, Celeste standing by the fireplace, Gloria near the couch, both of them rigid with anger and pain. "Sorry to interrupt," he said. "Pipe's fixed." Gloria looked at him like he was something she'd found on her shoe. "And you are?" "Adrien Vale. I'm a friend." "A friend." She made the word sound suspicious. "And you're here because Celeste called me about the frozen pipe." How convenient. A handyman who makes house calls. Her eyes narrowed. How long has this been going on? Excuse me? You heard me. My son is barely cold and you're already… Stop. Celeste's voice cut through the room. Stop right there. Adrien was Marcus's best friend. He's helping because that's what friends do. If you're going to stay in my house, you will not insult him. Your house? Gloria's face flushed. This house belongs to the Rowan Family Trust. Technically, you're just living here. Actually, Celeste said coldly, the trust was dissolved 3 years ago when Marcus and I restructured our finances. This house is in my name. Solely. So yes, my house. The silence that followed was arctic. Richard finally spoke. Let's all take a breath. This isn't helping anyone. But Gloria wasn't done. We'll discuss the funeral arrangements later. When you're more rational. She grabbed her purse. Come, Richard. We're leaving. They swept out. The front door closed with a bang. Celeste stood there for a moment, then walked to the couch and sat down hard. That went well. Adrien didn't know whether to stay or go. He settled for sitting in the chair across from her. They hate me, Celeste said. They always have. I wasn't good enough for their son. Wrong background, wrong religion, wrong everything. The only reason they tolerated me was because Marcus made them. They're grieving. So am I, but I'm not trying to control everything. She looked at him. Am I being unreasonable about the funeral? No. You don't have to say that just to be nice. I'm not. Marcus told me the same thing once, after his brother died and they had that huge Catholic service. He said if it was him, he'd want something simple, just people who actually knew him, not a performance. Then why do I feel like the villain for wanting to honor that? Because his mother is good at making people feel that way. Celeste laughed bitterly. You're not wrong. She rubbed her face. I'm so tired, Adrien. I'm tired of phone calls and arrangements and people telling me what I should do. I'm tired of being strong for Ivy. I'm tired of waking up every morning and remembering this is real. I know. Do you? Have you ever lost someone like this? Adrien was quiet for a moment, then, my wife, Eli's mom, cancer, 6 years ago. Celeste's expression changed. I didn't know. Marcus never… He knew not to bring it up. It was a long time ago. Does it get easier? No, you just get used to carrying it. They sat there in silence. Outside, snow had started falling again, big wet flakes that stuck to the windows. I need you to promise me something, Celeste said suddenly. What? If his parents try to take Ivy from me, you'll testify. Tell them what kind of father Marcus was. Tell them he'd want her with me. Adrien frowned. Why would they try to take Ivy? Because they can. Because they have money and lawyers, and they've never approved of how I'm raising her, because grief makes people do terrible things. She looked at him. Promise me. I promise. The funeral ended up being a compromise. Mass at St. Catherine's to appease Gloria, but with a celebration of life afterward at the house. Marcus's friends spoke. His business partners. People who'd actually known him. Adrien stood in the back of the church during the Mass, Eli beside him. He watched Celeste sit in the front pew with Ivy on her lap, both of them in black, both of them silent. Gloria kept glancing back at them with an expression Adrien couldn't quite read. Something between grief and calculation. After the burial, people came back to the house. Someone had arranged food. Someone else had put together a photo display. Marcus at various ages, Marcus and Celeste's wedding, Marcus holding newborn Ivy. Adrien found himself standing in front of that last photo for a long time. He was terrified, a voice said beside him. Adrien turned. Celeste stood there with a glass of wine she wasn't drinking. When Ivy was born, she continued, he was convinced he'd drop her or break her somehow. He held her like she was made of glass for the first month. He was a good father. He was. He really was. She took a sip of wine. His mother cornered me earlier. Asked when I was planning to move back to Connecticut. Said Ivy would be better off near family. What did you say? That Vermont is our home. That I'm not uprooting my daughter from everything she knows. She paused. She didn't like that answer. Before Adrien could respond, Gloria herself appeared. She'd been working the room like a campaign event, hugging people, accepting condolences, positioning herself as the primary mourner. Celeste, dear, we need to discuss the trust fund. Now, Gloria, we're at Marcus's funeral, which is exactly why we need to discuss it. Marcus's financial affairs need to be settled. There are documents that require your signature. Decisions about Ivy's education trust. The foundation Marcus was setting up. Can this wait until next week? Time-sensitive matters don't wait for convenience. Gloria's smile was thin. Richard and I think it would be best if Ivy came to stay with us in Florida for a while. Just until you get back on your feet. We have a wonderful school system and she'd be close to her cousins. Celeste's hand tightened on her wine glass. Ivy is staying here. With me. In this big house? All alone? With no family support? Dear, think about what's best for the child. I am thinking about her, which is why she's staying in her home. We'll discuss this later. Gloria's tone made it clear this wasn't a request. When you're more rational, she walked away. Adrien watched Celeste's face, saw the exact moment she understood what was happening. This wasn't about Ivy's education or support. This was the opening move in something bigger. She's going to fight me for custody, Celeste said quietly. Isn't she? Maybe. There's no maybe. You saw her face. She thinks I'm not capable of raising Ivy alone. She thinks the money makes a difference, like I can't provide for my own daughter. Her voice shook. Marcus was the shield. He kept them at a distance. Now there's nothing stopping them. Adrien wanted to argue, wanted to say she was overreacting, but he'd seen Gloria's expression too, had heard the calculation in her voice. Then you fight back, he said. With what? They have lawyers on retainer. They have connections. They don't have right on their side. Any judge would see that Ivy belongs with her mother. You have a lot of faith in the system. I have faith in you. Celeste looked at him for a long moment. Then she said something that would change everything. Marcus made me promise something. Years ago, in the hospital after Ivy was born, there were complications. They thought he might, well, it doesn't matter. But he made me promise that if anything ever happened to him, I'd let you help. He said you were the only person he trusted completely. Adrien felt something cold settle in his chest. Celeste, I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling you what he said. He wanted you to look after us. Not because he thought I couldn't manage, but because he knew I wouldn't have to do it alone. She finished her wine. I'm going to check on Ivy. She walked away, leaving Adrien standing there with a promise he'd never agreed to and a future he hadn't asked for. But as he watched her navigate the crowded room, watched her accept condolences with grace she shouldn't have to summon, watched her be strong when she was clearly breaking apart, he knew he'd already made his choice. Marcus had asked him to protect this family, and Adrien had never broken a promise to his best friend before. He wasn't about to start now. The groceries started showing up on Thursdays. Celeste didn't ask for them, didn't even know Adrien was coming until she heard his truck in the driveway, heard him stomping snow off his boots on the porch. The first time she'd opened the door to find him standing there with 4 bags from the market, looking vaguely embarrassed. You didn't have to do this, she'd said. I was already there. Figured I'd grab a few things. It wasn't a few things. It was milk and eggs and bread and the specific brand of apple juice Ivy liked. It was fresh vegetables and chicken breasts and pasta. It was everything she'd been putting off buying because the thought of walking through a grocery store, seeing people who knew what happened, accepting their sympathy, it was too much. Thank you, she'd said quietly. He'd just nodded and left the bags on the counter. Didn't stay. Didn't make a big deal of it. Just went back to his truck and drove away. The next Thursday, he did it again. And the Thursday after that. 2 weeks after the funeral, the furnace died. Celeste woke up to Ivy standing beside her bed, wrapped in her blanket, shivering. The house was freezing. Her breath came out in clouds. She checked the thermostat, 53 degrees and dropping. She called Adrien at 6 in the morning. The heat's out, she said when he answered. No preamble, no apology for the early hour. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He showed up in 19, went straight to the basement without waiting to be invited in. Celeste stood at the top of the stairs with her coffee, listening to him bang around down there, muttering to himself. Ivy appeared in her pajamas, still wrapped in her blanket. Is the house broken? Just the furnace, baby. Mr. Adrien's fixing it. Is he going to live here now? Celeste looked at her daughter. What? He's here all the time, like Daddy used to be. Something twisted in Celeste's chest. He's just helping us. That's what friends do. Ivy seemed to consider this. Then she went back upstairs to get ready for school. Adrien emerged from the basement an hour later, covered in dust, holding a part that looked important. Blower motor's shot. I can replace it, but it'll take a few hours. You should take Ivy somewhere warm. I have meetings this morning. Cancel them. I can't just... Celeste. He looked at her. It's 12 degrees outside and your heat doesn't work. Cancel the meetings. She wanted to argue, wanted to say she was fine, she could handle it, she didn't need him making decisions for her. But Ivy was upstairs in 3 layers of clothes and Celeste's fingers were numb, even holding her coffee cup. Fine, she said. She took Ivy to the library in town. They sat in the children's section while Ivy picked out books and Celeste tried to focus on emails on her phone, but her mind kept drifting back to the house. To Adrien down in her basement, fixing things Marcus used to handle. To the fact that she'd called him without thinking, without considering anyone else, because he was the person who showed up. Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrien. Heat's back. Replace the motor. You're good to go. She texted back. How much do I owe you? The response came immediately. Nothing. Marcus would have done the same for me. Celeste stared at that message for a long time. Marcus would have done the same. Past tense. Everything was past tense now. That night, after Ivy was asleep, Celeste went to the basement to see what Adrien had done. The new motor hummed quietly, pushing warm air through the vents. He'd also swept the floor and organized the tools Marcus had left scattered everywhere. Small things. Things he didn't have to do. She found herself crying for the first time in days. Not the gasping, desperate crying from those first nights. Just tears that came and wouldn't stop. She sat on the basement steps and cried for Marcus, for Ivy, for the fact that a near stranger was holding her life together with groceries and furnace repairs while she could barely get through a single day. The custody letter arrived on a Tuesday. Celeste was making lunch when the doorbell rang. A courier handed her an envelope. She signed for it absently, thinking it was something related to Marcus's estate. There were always papers to sign. Always something requiring her attention. She opened it standing in the kitchen. It was a petition. Legal language that took her a moment to parse. Richard and Gloria Rowan requesting emergency custody of Ivy Rowan based on concerns about the child's welfare and the mother's ability to provide adequate care in her current mental state. Celeste read it twice, then a third time. They were actually doing this. Marcus had been dead for 3 weeks, and his parents were trying to take his daughter. Her hands started shaking. The paper rattled. She set it down on the counter before she dropped it. Ivy was in the living room watching cartoons, safe, happy, completely unaware that her grandparents thought she needed to be rescued from her own mother. Celeste picked up her phone and called her lawyer. Got voicemail. Of course. She left a message, trying to keep her voice steady, trying not to sound like she was unraveling. Then she called Adrien. He answered on the second ring. Hey, they're suing for custody. Her voice came out flat, mechanical. Marcus's parents, they filed a petition. They think I'm not fit to raise my own daughter. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm coming over. He hung up. Celeste stood in her kitchen, staring at the legal papers, feeling the walls close in. This house that was supposed to be safe. This life she was supposed to be building for Ivy. All of it suddenly felt fragile, like it could be taken away by 2 grieving grandparents and a lawyer who knew how to write the right words. Adrien arrived 20 minutes later. He must have been working a job because he was still in his work clothes, dust on his jeans, tool belt in his truck. He came straight to the kitchen and picked up the papers. She watched him read, watched his jaw tighten. This is garbage, he said finally. It's legal garbage, which means it matters. Concerns about your mental state? You're grieving your husband. That's not a mental health crisis. That's being human. Tell that to their lawyer. Celeste poured herself water just to have something to do with her hands. They're claiming the house is too isolated, that Ivy needs family support, that I'm not emotionally stable enough to make decisions about her education and welfare. You're her mother. And they're her grandparents, with money and connections and a lawyer who knows exactly how to make me look incompetent. She drank the water even though she wasn't thirsty. They mentioned you, actually. Adrien looked up. What? Paragraph 7. Mrs. Rowan has been observed relying heavily on a male friend for household maintenance and childcare support, raising concerns about the stability of the home environment and the appropriateness of exposing the minor child to a non-family member in a primary caregiver role. They're using me against you. They're using everything against me. The fact that I work from home. The fact that I haven't taken Ivy to their house in Florida. The fact that I'm not raising her Catholic. Celeste set down her glass. They have a whole list of ways I'm failing, and some of them are true. I am relying on you. I can't do everything myself. I need help. Needing help doesn't make you unfit, but it makes their case stronger. Single mother, isolated, dependent on outside support, emotionally fragile. It all adds up to someone who can't handle raising a child alone. Adrien was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised her. So don't be alone. What? Their argument is that you're a single parent who can't manage. Take that argument away. Celeste stared at him. I don't understand. I'm saying... He stopped, started again. Look, this is going to sound insane, but if you weren't single, if there was a stable two-parent household, their case falls apart. Understanding hit her like cold water. You're suggesting I get remarried. I'm suggesting you have options they haven't considered. To who? I've been a widow for 3 weeks. I'm not exactly dating. Adrien looked at her, really looked at her, and Celeste suddenly understood what he was saying, what he was actually suggesting. No, she said immediately. Absolutely not. Just hear me out. You want me to marry you, to stop a custody battle. That's insane. It's practical. It's a terrible idea. She moved away from him, putting the kitchen island between them. Adrien, you can't just offer to marry someone because they're in legal trouble. Why not? Because marriage it's not a legal strategy. It's not something you do to win a court case. People get married for worse reasons. That doesn't make this a good one. She shook her head. You have a son, a life. You can't upend everything because Marcus's parents are being vindictive. I'm not upending anything. I'm already here every week, already helping with Ivy, already fixing things around the house. The only difference would be a piece of paper that says, I'm committed to staying. And what happens when the custody case is over? When we don't need the legal protection anymore? We just get divorced? If that's what you want, Celeste laughed. It came out harsh. You're talking about marriage like it's a temporary arrangement, like it doesn't mean anything. I'm talking about it like it's a tool, a way to protect Ivy from being taken from her home. He came around the island. Celeste, I made a promise to Marcus. He asked me to look after you two. This is me doing that. Marcus didn't ask you to marry his widow. Marcus asked me to do whatever it took to keep his family safe. That's what this is. She wanted to argue, wanted to say this was crazy, impulsive, wrong, in every way that mattered. But part of her was already calculating, already seeing how it could work. A stable household, 2 parents, financial security, everything Gloria and Richard were claiming she didn't have. I need to think, she said. Okay. This isn't a small thing. I need time. Take all the time you need. He headed for the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I wouldn't offer if I didn't think it could work. I like Ivy. Eli likes her. You and I get along. It wouldn't be some terrible hardship. But it wouldn't be real. He looked at her. It would be real enough. After he left, Celeste sat at the kitchen table with the custody papers and tried to think rationally. Tried to separate panic from logic. Fear from strategy. The truth was, Gloria and Richard had a case. Not a strong one, but enough to make trouble. Enough to drag this out in court, expose Ivy to lawyers and evaluations, force them all to prove things that shouldn't need proving. And Adrien's solution, as insane as it sounded, would end it. Would take away their primary argument. Would give Celeste the one thing their money couldn't buy, stability. Her lawyer called back that evening. Celeste explained the situation, read portions of the petition, waited for reassurance that this was frivolous. Instead, she got, they're playing hardball. This isn't just about custody. They're positioning for a long fight. Can they win? Win? Probably not. But they can make your life hell trying. Court appearances, evaluations, home studies, psychological assessments. They'll drag this out as long as possible. cost you time and money and peace of mind. And at the end, even if you win, the damage will be done. Ivy will have gone through months of instability. Celeste closed her eyes. What do I do? You fight. You document everything. You show you're a capable parent, and you eliminate any weaknesses in your case they could exploit. Weaknesses. Like being a single parent. Like relying on a friend for help. Like not having the traditional family structure they claimed Ivy needed. That night, after Ivy was asleep, Celeste stood in Marcus's study. She hadn't touched most of his things yet. Couldn't bring herself to pack them away. His books were still on the shelves. His jacket still on the back of his chair. She found the letter in his desk drawer. The one he'd written after Ivy was born, when he thought he might die. He'd told her about it once, but she'd never read it, never wanted to imagine a world where she'd need to. Now she opened it with shaking hands. The handwriting was messy. Marcus had never been good at writing by hand, but the words were clear enough. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for leaving you alone with all of this. Sorry for not being there to watch Ivy grow up. Sorry for every moment I'm going to miss. But I need you to know something. I trust Adrien with my life. More than that, I trust him with yours. If anything happens to me, let him help. Don't be stubborn. Don't push him away because you think you have to do everything yourself. He's the best man I know, and if there's anyone I'd trust to step in and be there for you and Ivy, it's him. I know that sounds strange, like I'm giving permission for something. Maybe I am. All I know is that I love you, and I love our daughter, and I want you both to be okay, whatever that looks like, whatever it takes. Don't mourn me forever. Build a life, be happy. Let people help you. Adrien will help you if you let him. I love you. Always. Marcus. Celeste read it 3 times, then she folded it carefully and put it back in the drawer. Marcus had known. Somehow, he'd known this might happen, known that she'd need help, known who to trust. She picked up her phone and texted Adrien, "Can you come by tomorrow? We need to talk." His response came a minute later. "I'll be there at 9. She didn't sleep that night, just lay in bed thinking about what she was considering. Marriage to a man she barely knew. A legal arrangement to save her daughter. The most practical, impractical thing she'd ever contemplated. Adrien showed up at exactly 9 with coffee from the shop in town. He handed her a cup without comment, and they sat at the kitchen table while Ivy played upstairs. "I read Marcus's letter," Celeste said, "the one he wrote in the hospital." Adrien waited. "He wanted you to help. Specifically you. He trusted you with us." "I know." "How do you know?" "He told me. Right before Ivy was born. He said if anything happened, I was the one he wanted looking after his family." Celeste wrapped her hands around the coffee cup. "So you've been planning this? The groceries, the repairs, all of it?" "No, I've been doing what Marcus asked. The marriage thing is new. But you'd really do it. You'd actually marry me to help with a custody case." "Yes." "Why?" He thought about that for a moment. "Because Ivy deserves to grow up in her own home. Because you're a good mother and you shouldn't have to prove that to anyone. Because Marcus asked me to protect his family, and this is how I can do that." He paused. "And because Eli needs stability too. He's been struggling since Marcus died. Having Ivy around, having something to focus on besides grief, it's helped him. This arrangement would help both our kids." Celeste hadn't thought about it from that angle. About Eli losing his uncle Marcus. About how this might actually be good for both children. "What would it look like?" she asked. "Practically. I'd move in. We'd present as a married couple, share responsibilities, co-parent." He shrugged. "Everything we're already doing, just with legal paperwork." "And sleeping arrangements?" "Separate rooms. I'm not asking for anything like that." "What about dating, if you meet someone?" "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Right now, my priority is keeping Ivy with her mother and getting through this custody fight." It sounded so simple when he said it like that, so reasonable. But Celeste knew better. Marriage, even a practical one, changed things, created expectations, blurred lines. "I need you to be honest with me," she said. "Is this really about helping, or is there something else?" "Like what?" "I don't know. Maybe you feel guilty. Maybe you think you owe Marcus something. Maybe—" "Celeste." He looked directly at her. "I'm offering because it makes sense. Not because of guilt or obligation or some complicated motive. It's a solution to a problem. That's all. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this could be clean and simple and exactly what he said it was. If we do this, she said slowly, we'd need rules, boundaries, clear expectations about what this is and what it isn't. Agreed. And we'd need to tell Ivy something. She can't think this is... I don't want her getting confused. We'll figure it out together. Celeste took a long drink of coffee, thought about Gloria's smug face, about Richard's calculated silence, about lawyers and court dates, and having to prove she was worthy of raising her own daughter. Then she thought about Adrien showing up every Thursday with groceries, fixing the furnace at 6 in the morning, standing in her kitchen offering to marry her like it was the most natural thing in the world. Okay, she said. Adrien blinked. Okay. Yes. Let's do it. Let's get married and stop this custody case before it destroys everything. He nodded slowly. You're sure? No. But I'm sure I want Ivy to stay home. And if this is what it takes, then this is what we do. They sat there for a moment, two people who just agreed to something insane, drinking coffee in a dead man's kitchen. We should probably tell our kids, Adrien said finally. Probably. But neither of them moved, because telling the kids made it real, made it something they couldn't take back. Ivy came downstairs first. She stopped in the kitchen doorway, looking between them. Are you guys having a grown-up talk? Sort of, Celeste said. Come here, baby. We need to tell you something. Ivy climbed into her mother's lap. Adrien called Eli, who'd been in the living room reading. The boy appeared looking wary, like he knew something big was coming. Celeste looked at Adrien. He nodded. She took a breath. You know how Mr. Adrien's been helping us a lot lately, with groceries and fixing things around the house? Ivy nodded. Well, we've decided that it would be easier if he and Eli moved in with us. So we're all going to live together, like a family. Like when Daddy lived here? Ivy asked. Celeste's throat tightened. Similar, but different, mister. Adrien and I are going to get married, which means he'll be your stepdad, and Eli will be like your brother. Ivy processed this. Then, with the brutal honesty of a 4-year-old, do you love him like you love Daddy? The question hung in the air. Adrien's expression didn't change, but Celeste saw something flicker in his eyes. I loved your daddy very much, Celeste said carefully. Mr. Adrien and I are friends, good friends, and we both want to take care of you and Eli. That's what this is about. So you don't love him. I care about him, and he cares about us. That's what matters. Ivy seemed satisfied with this answer. She slid off Celeste's lap and looked at Eli. Want to see my room? You can help me pick which bed you get. Eli glanced at his father. Adrien nodded. The two kids disappeared upstairs. Celeste and Adrien sat in the kitchen, listening to the sound of children's voices overhead. That went better than expected, Adrien said. She doesn't understand what we're actually doing. Neither do we. We're all just figuring it out. The wedding happened on a Thursday afternoon at the town clerk's office. Just the two of them, with the clerk's assistant as a witness. Celeste wore a blue dress she'd had in her closet. Adrien wore slacks and a button-down. No flowers. No rings. No pretense that this was anything other than what it was. The clerk read the words. They repeated them. Signed the paper. Congratulations, the clerk said with a smile that suggested she thought this was romantic. In the parking lot, Adrien unlocked his truck and then paused. You want to grab lunch or something? Feels weird to just go home after getting married. Sure. They went to the diner on Main Street, sat in a booth in the back, ordered sandwiches neither of them were particularly hungry for. We're married, Celeste said, testing the words. Legally. Is there another kind? I don't know. Probably. He picked at his fries. My wife, my first wife, she would have hated this. The practicality of it. She believed marriage should be about love, or it shouldn't happen at all. She sounds like she had strong opinions. She did. About everything. He smiled slightly. You would have liked her. She didn't take anyone's garbage. When she got sick, she fought like hell. Made the doctors explain everything twice. Researched every treatment. She was stubborn right up until the end. I'm sorry you lost her. I'm sorry you lost Marcus. They sat with that for a moment. Two people who'd loved other people, now legally bound to each other for entirely different reasons. For what it's worth, Adrien said, I think we can make this work. Not as a real marriage, but as, whatever this is, a partnership. A partnership, Celeste repeated. Okay, I can work with that. They finished lunch, drove back to the house separately. When Celeste pulled into the driveway, she saw Adrien's truck already there, saw him unloading boxes from the bed, moving in. Making this arrangement official, she sat in her car for a moment, looking at the house. Marcus's house. Her house. Now Adrien's house, too. This was really happening. She got out of the car and went to help him unload. Adrien's boxes sat in the hallway for 3 days before he actually unpacked them. Celeste walked past them every morning on her way to make coffee, and every morning they reminded her that this was real. A man she barely knew was living in her house, sleeping in the guest room down the hall, eating breakfast at her kitchen table, all because they'd signed a piece of paper at the town clerk's office. The first night had been awkward. They'd ordered pizza for the kids, sat through dinner making small talk about school and homework, avoided looking at each other too directly. After Ivy and Eli went to bed, Adrien had disappeared into his room and Celeste had done the same. They'd moved around each other like strangers sharing a hotel. The second night was worse. Adrien had tried to help with dishes and they'd ended up in each other's way, both reaching for the same plate, both apologizing too much. The kitchen felt too small suddenly. The whole house felt too small. By the third night, Celeste found Adrien in the living room at 11 o'clock, drinking beer and staring at his phone. Can't sleep? She asked. He looked up. Something like that. She sat down in the chair across from him. She was wearing an old sweatshirt and pajama pants, her hair pulled back, no makeup, the way Marcus used to see her, the way no one else did. This is weird, she said. Yeah, but I don't know how to act around you. In my own house. I don't know if I'm supposed to make conversation or give you space or what. Adrien set down his phone. I don't know either. I keep feeling like I'm intruding, like I should ask permission before I use the bathroom or open the fridge. You don't have to ask permission. This is your home now, too. Legally. That's still something. She pulled her knees up to her chest. We should probably establish some kind of routine, figure out how this is going to work day to day. Okay. I usually make breakfast around 7, get Ivy ready for preschool. Then I work from my office upstairs until I have to pick her up at 3. I'm usually on a job site by 7:30, home around 5, unless something runs late. Dinner time? 6 works. They sat there planning their lives like they were scheduling a business meeting, dividing up responsibilities, negotiating territory. What about weekends? Celeste asked. What about them? Do we do things together, as a family, or do we just coexist? Adrien thought about that. I think we should try to do some things together. For the kids. Make it look normal. Right. Normal. She laughed without humor. A marriage of convenience trying to look like the real thing. It is real, just not in the traditional way. You keep saying that. Because it's true. He finished his beer. Look, I know this isn't what either of us wanted, but we're doing it for good reasons. That counts for something. Before Celeste could respond, they heard footsteps on the stairs. Ivy appeared in her pajamas, dragging her stuffed rabbit. Mama, I had a bad dream. Celeste stood immediately. Come here, baby. But Ivy didn't go to her mother. She walked straight to Adrien and climbed into his lap. He looked startled, uncertain what to do. Then he wrapped his arms around her carefully like she might break. What was the dream about? He asked. Daddy was in the car, and the ice was everywhere. And I was trying to tell him to stop, but he couldn't hear me. Celeste's heart cracked. She moved to sit beside Adrien on the couch, reaching out to touch her daughter's hair. It was just a dream, sweetheart. It wasn't real. But Daddy's not coming back. That part is real. I know. Ivy looked up at Adrien. Are you going to leave too? No, he said without hesitation. I'm staying right here. Promise? I promise. The certainty in his voice made something shift in Celeste's chest. He said it like he meant it. Like this wasn't just a temporary arrangement to win a court case. Like he was actually committed to being here. Ivy settled against his chest, her rabbit tucked under her chin. Within minutes, she was asleep. Adrien looked at Celeste over the child's head. Should I take her back to bed? In a minute, let her sleep. They sat there together on the couch, Ivy breathing softly between them, the house quiet around them. It felt like something, not quite a family. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of one. The custody hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks after the wedding. Celeste's lawyer had filed the marriage certificate as evidence of a stable household. Gloria and Richard's lawyer had responded with a motion claiming the marriage was fraudulent and entered into solely to circumvent the custody petition. They wanted it investigated, wanted proof this was a legitimate relationship. They're going to dig into everything, the lawyer warned Celeste over the phone. Bank accounts, living arrangements, how long you've known each other. They'll try to prove this is a sham. What do we need to do? Act married. Joint accounts would help. Emergency contacts listing each other. Evidence you're living as a couple, not as roommates. After she hung up, Celeste found Adrien in the garage. He was fixing Eli's bike, grease on his hands, focused on the chain. We have a problem, she said. He looked up. What kind? The kind where we need to prove we're actually married, not just legally, but in practice. She explained what the lawyer had said, watched his expression stay carefully neutral. Joint bank account? He repeated. It doesn't have to be everything, just enough to show we're financially connected. And they want what? Proof we share a bedroom? Probably. He set down his tools. I'm not going to pressure you into anything you're not comfortable with. I know, but we need to make this look real. Which means, she took a breath, maybe we should move into the same room. Not the same bed, but the same room. So if anyone checks, if they do a home visit or whatever, it looks like what it's supposed to. Adrien wiped his hands on a rag. The master bedroom? It's the biggest. We could set up the sitting area as your space. Separate beds, separate sides of the room, like roommates who happen to be married. That's a terrible description. It's an accurate one. He studied her for a moment. You're sure about this? No, but I'm sure about keeping Ivy. Everything else is just logistics. That weekend, they moved his things into Marcus's old room. Celeste had already boxed up most of Marcus's clothes, but his books were still on the nightstand, his watch still in the dish on the dresser. She'd been putting off clearing it all out. Now she had no choice. Adrien helped her pack, didn't comment when she had to stop twice because she was crying, just handed her tissues and kept working. They set up a bed for him in the sitting area by the window, put a screen between the two spaces for privacy. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. That first night sharing a room, Celeste lay in her bed listening to Adrien move around on the other side of the screen. Heard him brush his teeth, heard the springs of his bed creak as he settled in. It was intimate in a way she hadn't expected. Not romantic, just present. You still awake? He asked into the darkness. Yeah. This is strange. Understatement. You'll tell me if it's too much? If you need more space? I will. Same goes for you. Silence. Then, thanks for not making this harder than it has to be. Thanks for doing this at all. She heard him shift. Good night, Celeste. Good night. She didn't sleep well that night, but then she hadn't been sleeping well for months. Gloria and Richard showed up unannounced 2 weeks before the hearing. Celeste was in her office working when the doorbell rang. She glanced at the clock, 2 in the afternoon. Adrien was at a job site. The kids wouldn't be home for another hour. She opened the door to find her in-laws standing on the porch, dressed like they were attending a funeral. Gloria's expression was tight. Richard's was unreadable. We need to talk, Gloria said. Celeste wanted to slam the door, wanted to tell them to go through their lawyer like everyone else, but she stepped aside and let them in. They settled in the living room. Gloria perched on the edge of the couch like she was afraid to touch anything. Richard stood by the window, hands in his pockets. I'll get straight to the point, Gloria said. We know this marriage is fake. Celeste kept her face neutral. I don't know what you're talking about. Please. Marcus has been dead for 2 months, and you're already married to some handyman. You expect us to believe that's legitimate? Adrien isn't some handyman. He was Marcus's best friend. And now he's conveniently your husband, right when we file for custody. The timing is remarkable. The timing is what it is. Gloria leaned forward. Drop this charade, and we can come to an arrangement. You get reasonable visitation. Ivy comes to live with us in Florida, where she'll have proper supervision, proper education, proper family support. Ivy has family support right here. From a stranger you married for convenience? That's not family, that's desperation. Richard finally spoke. We're not trying to hurt you, Celeste. We're trying to do what's best for our granddaughter. What's best for her is staying with her mother, in her home, with people who love her. You mean with a man you barely know? Gloria's voice rose. Do you even know anything about him? His background, his finances, his history? You invited him into your home, into your daughter's life, and for all you know, he could be… Stop. Celeste's voice came out harder than she intended. Adrien has been nothing but kind to me and Ivy. He's been there when no one else was, including both of you. We're in Florida. Say, you're a phone call away. You could have checked in. Could have offered to help. Instead, you showed up with lawyers and accusations. Gloria stood. We're trying to protect Ivy from your poor judgment. My poor judgment? I'm protecting my daughter from people who think they can take her away from everything she knows because they have money and connections. We have more than that. We have love. We have family values. You have a need to control everything. Celeste stood too. Marcus spent his whole life trying to live up to your expectations. I'm not putting Ivy through that. How dare you? I think you should leave. Richard touched his wife's arm. Gloria, I'm not done. Yes, you are. Celeste walked to the front door and opened it. You can say whatever you want to your lawyer. You can investigate my marriage all you want, but you're not doing it in my house. Gloria swept past her, radiating indignation. Richard followed more slowly. He paused in the doorway. For what it's worth, he said quietly, Marcus would have wanted Ivy with you. I know that. But Gloria, she's not thinking clearly. She lost her son. She's trying to hold on to something. She's trying to hold on to my daughter. That's not the same thing. He nodded. No, it's not. After they left, Celeste stood in the empty living room, shaking. She'd kept her composure while they were there, but now it was falling apart. She sat down hard on the couch and put her head in her hands. Her phone rang. Adrien. Hey, she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. You okay? You sound off. Gloria and Richard were here. What? When? Just now. They left a few minutes ago. I'm coming home. You don't have to. I'm already in the truck. He showed up 20 minutes later, found Celeste still on the couch, staring at nothing. What did they say? He asked. She told him. All of it. The accusations about their marriage, the offer of visitation, Gloria's barely contained rage. Adrien listened without interrupting. When she finished, he sat down beside her. They're scared, he said. Scared? They're the ones with lawyers and money and scared of losing Ivy, of losing the last connection they have to Marcus. People do terrible things when they're scared. That doesn't make it okay. No, but it makes it understandable. He looked at her. We need to be ready for the hearing. They're going to come at us hard, question everything about our relationship. I know. So we need to know each other better, not just surface stuff, real things, the kind of things married couples know. Celeste realized he was right. They'd been living together for 2 weeks, but they'd spent most of that time being polite strangers. If a lawyer started asking questions, they'd fall apart immediately. Okay, she said. Where do we start? They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, really talking. Adrien told her about his childhood in upstate New York, about his father who died when he was 16, about meeting his first wife at a community college class. Celeste told him about growing up with money she never wanted, about her parents who died in a plane crash when she was 23, about meeting Marcus at a charity event and knowing immediately he was different from everyone else. They talked about their kids, about Eli's struggles with reading and his love of building things, about Ivy's fear of the dark and her obsession with dinosaurs. They talked about favorite foods and pet peeves and the small details of daily life that made someone a person instead of just a name. By the time the kids got home from school, Celeste felt like she actually knew the man she'd married. That night, after dinner, Eli asked if he could show Ivy how to build a birdhouse in the garage. Adrien gave permission and the two kids disappeared, leaving Celeste and Adrien alone at the kitchen table. They're getting close, Celeste observed. Yeah, Eli hasn't had that in a while. A friend who isn't just from school. Ivy's been lonely too. She had friends in preschool, but after Marcus died, she stopped wanting to play with anyone. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sound of children's laughter from the garage. Can I ask you something? Adrien said. Sure. That first night I came here, when I told you about Marcus, you didn't fall apart right away. You held it together until Ivy was there. How did you do that? Celeste thought about that moment, about standing in the doorway hearing the worst news of her life and somehow staying upright. I don't know, she said honestly. Survival instinct, maybe. Or just years of being taught to keep my composure, no matter what. My mother used to say emotions were for private moments, not public ones. That sounds lonely. It was. Still is sometimes. She looked at him. What about you, when your wife died? How did you handle it? Badly. I drank too much, worked too much, ignored Eli when he needed me most. It took Marcus showing up one day and telling me I was destroying my life to snap me out of it. I didn't know that. Not something I advertise, but he helped me get through it, made me see I had to be present for my son. That grief wasn't an excuse to check out, and now you're helping me the same way. I'm trying to. Celeste reached across the table and took his hand. It surprised both of them. His hand was rough, calloused from work. Hers was small in his. Thank you, she said, for all of this. I know I don't say it enough. You don't have to say it at all. Yes, I do. You're putting your life on hold to help us. That means something. Adrien looked at their joined hands. It's not on hold, it's just different than I expected. Something in his voice made her look at him more carefully, made her wonder if this was starting to mean more to him than just helping a friend's widow. Before she could pursue that thought, the kids burst back in, covered in sawdust, arguing about the proper way to hammer a nail. The moment passed. The night before the hearing, Celeste couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to Adrien breathe on the other side of the screen. He was asleep. Had been for an hour. She envied him that. The ability to just shut down and rest. Around 2 a.m, she gave up, got out of bed as quietly as she could, and went downstairs to make tea. She was sitting at the kitchen table in the dark when Adrien appeared in the doorway. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. No. He sat down across from her. He was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair sticking up on one side. It was the most disheveled she'd ever seen him. You're worried about tomorrow, he said. I'm terrified. What if they can tell we're not really married? What if the judge sees right through us? Then we tell the truth. That we got married to protect Ivy. That it might not be traditional, but it's working. Is it working? Isn't it? Celeste thought about that. About the last few weeks, the morning routines they'd developed, the dinners they'd shared, the way Ivy had started calling Adrien by his first name instead of Mr. Adrien, the way Eli had started asking Celeste for help with homework. I think it might be, she admitted, which makes it more complicated. Why? Because this was supposed to be temporary. A solution to a problem, not, she gestured vaguely, whatever it's turning into. Adrien was quiet for a moment, then, would it be so bad if it turned into something more? Her heart kicked. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe this doesn't have to be just a legal arrangement. Maybe we're actually building something here. Adrien, I'm not asking for anything. I'm just saying I like this. Living here, being around you and the kids. It feels right in a way I didn't expect. Celeste didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to shut this down immediately, to remind him this was about Ivy, not about them. But another part, a part she'd been trying to ignore, felt the same way. I can't think about this right now, she said finally. I need to focus on tomorrow, on keeping my daughter. Okay, but after, when this is over, we should talk about what this is, what we want it to be. I'd like that. They sat there in the kitchen, tea cooling between them, something shifting in the air that neither of them was quite ready to name. The hearing took place in a small courtroom that smelled like old wood and anxiety. Celeste sat at a table with her lawyer, Adrien, beside her. Across the aisle, Gloria and Richard sat with their attorney, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit. The judge was an older man with reading glasses and an expression that suggested he'd seen every custody battle variation possible and was tired of all of them. Gloria and Richard's lawyer went first. She painted a picture of a grieving widow who'd rushed into marriage with a man she barely knew, all to avoid losing custody. She questioned Adrien's finances, his background, his motives. She suggested the marriage was fraudulent and that Ivy was being exposed to instability. Celeste's lawyer countered, showed evidence of a stable household, joint bank statements, character witnesses who testified that Adrien had been present in Ivy's life since birth, that he and Marcus had been like brothers, that this was a natural evolution of an existing relationship. Then Adrien was called to testify. He walked to the stand and was sworn in. Celeste watched him sit down, looking uncomfortable in a suit she'd helped him pick out the day before. Gloria's lawyer approached him like a predator sizing up prey. "Mr. Vale, how long have you known Mrs. Rowan?" 11 years since she and Marcus got married. And in those 11 years before Mr. Rowan's death, how often did you spend time alone with Mrs. Rowan? Not often. We were friends because of Marcus. Most of our interactions were as couples. So you didn't have a particularly close relationship with her. I wouldn't say that. We were friendly, but Marcus was the connection. And yet within weeks of his death, you married her. That seems rather sudden, doesn't it? Marcus asked me to look after his family if anything happened to him. I was honoring that. By marrying his widow? By making sure Ivy stayed with her mother, which is what Marcus would have wanted. The lawyer smiled thinly. Very convenient. Tell me, Mr. Vale, what do you do for work? I'm an electrician. I run my own business. And your annual income? Adrien stated a number. It wasn't small, but it wasn't Celeste's money either. So you went from living modestly to living in a mansion with a billionaire. That must be quite an adjustment. I'm not living there for the money. No? Then why are you living there? Because Ivy needs stability. Because Celeste needed help. Because it was the right thing to do. The right thing. How noble. The lawyer's voice dripped with skepticism. Or perhaps it's simply convenient. Free housing, financial security, all wrapped up in a marriage that requires nothing from you emotionally. That's not... Tell me, Mr. Vale, do you love Mrs. Rowan? The courtroom went silent. Adrien looked at the lawyer. Then his eyes found Celeste's across the room, and he said, "Yes." Celeste's heart stopped. "Yes?" the lawyer repeated. "You love her." "I do." "After 2 months? You expect us to believe you fell in love with your best friend's widow in 2 months? I didn't fall in love in 2 months. I've known Celeste for 11 years. I've watched her be a good wife, a good mother, a good person. Somewhere in there, yeah, I fell in love. I just didn't do anything about it because she was married to my best friend." He leaned forward. "Marcus dying didn't create my feelings. It just removed the reason I couldn't act on them." The lawyer looked like she'd been hit. She recovered quickly. "How convenient that you discovered these feelings right when Mrs. Rowan needed a husband to avoid a custody battle. The timing is what it is. The feelings are real. Are they? Or are you simply saying what you think will help you win this case?" Adrien's jaw tightened. "I'm saying what's true." The lawyer asked a few more questions, but the damage was done. Or the truth was out. Celeste wasn't sure which. When Adrien stepped down, he didn't look at her, just walked back to his seat and stared straight ahead. Celeste was called next. She testified about her relationship with Ivy, about their daily routine, about the support system they had in Vermont. She answered questions about her mental health, her finances, her marriage. And when Gloria's lawyer asked if she loved Adrien, she looked right at her in-laws and said, "Yes, I do." Because somewhere between groceries and broken furnaces and quiet conversations and dark kitchens, it had become true. The judge called a recess, said he'd review the evidence and issue a ruling within 48 hours. Outside the courtroom, Celeste stood on the steps with Adrien while their lawyers talked. Gloria and Richard walked past without looking at them. "Did you mean it?" Celeste asked quietly. "What?" "What you said in there about loving me." Adrien looked at her. "Yeah, I meant it." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you're grieving. Because this is complicated. Because I didn't want to make things harder." "And now?" "Now it's out there. You can do whatever you want with it." Celeste thought about Marcus, about the promise she'd made to build a life, to be happy, to let people help her, about the letter in his desk that told her to trust Adrien with everything. "I meant it too," she said. What I said in there. Adrien's expression shifted. You did? I didn't realize it until the words came out, but yeah, I love you. She laughed shakily. Which is insane. We've been married for 3 weeks. We've known each other for 11 years. We've lived together for 3 weeks. And apparently that was enough. They stood there on the courthouse steps, two people who'd gotten married for all the wrong reasons, discovering they might have stumbled into something right. The judge's ruling came 2 days later. Petition denied. Custody remained with Celeste. The marriage was deemed legitimate based on the testimony and evidence provided. Gloria and Richard's concerns were noted but ultimately found to be unsubstantiated. Ivy was staying home. When Celeste got the call, she sat down hard on the kitchen floor and cried. Not from sadness this time. From relief so overwhelming she couldn't stand, Adrien found her there, pulled her up, held her while she shook. It's over, she said against his chest. They can't take her. No, they can't. We did it. You did it. You were amazing in there. She pulled back to look at him. We did it together. That night, they told the kids. Ivy cheered. Eli high-fived his father. They ordered pizza and watched a movie and acted like a normal family, celebrating good news. Later, after the kids were in bed, Celeste and Adrien stood in their shared room facing each other across the screen that divided their spaces. So, Celeste said, we don't have to stay married now. The custody case is over. We could what? I don't know. Figure out what we actually want to do. Adrien moved around the screen, stood close enough that she had to tilt her head back to look at him. I know what I want, he said. What? This. Us. The life we've been building. I don't want it to end just because the legal pressure is off. Even though we started for all the wrong reasons? Especially because of that. We built something real out of something practical. That's rare. Celeste thought about that. About waking up every morning knowing he was there. About sharing meals and responsibilities in small moments. About the way Ivy had started drawing pictures with 4 people instead of 3. I want it too, she admitted, but I'm scared. Of what? Of this not working, of losing someone else, of building something and watching it fall apart. Those are all possibilities, but so is this working. So is us being happy together. So is giving the kids a real family instead of just a legal arrangement. He was right. She knew he was right. Okay, she said. Okay? Let's try. Let's actually try to make this a real marriage. Adrien smiled, really smiled. Then he kissed her. It was soft and careful and full of promise. A first kiss that came 3 weeks after a wedding, a beginning that looked nothing like anyone would expect. When they pulled apart, Celeste was crying again. Happy tears this time. Too fast? Adrien asked, wiping her cheek. No, just right. They stood there holding each other while outside the March wind blew and inside the house settled into quiet. 2 broken people who'd found a way to be whole together. A family built on loss and necessity and something that was starting to look a lot like love. The screen came down on a Saturday morning in April. Adrien woke to find Celeste standing beside it in her pajamas, hands on her hips, staring at the divider like it had personally offended her. What are you doing? He asked, voice rough with sleep. This is stupid, she said. What is? This. The screen. We're married. We're actually trying to make this work. Why are we still sleeping in separate spaces like college roommates? Adrien sat up, running a hand through his hair. I thought you wanted the privacy. I did. When this was just an arrangement. But you kissed me 3 days ago and told me you loved me, and we're still acting like strangers who happen to share a room. He looked at her. Really looked at her. She had bedhead and no makeup, and was wearing one of Marcus's old Yale sweatshirts she still couldn't bring herself to throw away. She was beautiful, and terrified, and trying so hard to be brave. So what do you want to do? He asked. I want to take this thing down. Move your bed over there. She pointed to the space beside hers. Still separate beds, but at least in the same room, like actual married people. You're sure? No, but I'm tired of being sure about everything. I'm tired of overthinking. Let's just do it and see what happens. So they took down the screen. It was harder than it looked. The thing was heavy and awkward, and they almost dropped it twice. By the time they got it folded up and stored in the basement, they were both sweating and laughing. and the tension that had been building since that kiss had loosened into something easier. They rearranged the furniture, pushed Adrien's bed against the wall opposite Celeste's. It left more open space in the middle of the room, made it feel less cramped, more like a choice they were making together instead of a necessity they were tolerating. That night, they went to bed in the same room without a barrier between them. Celeste lay in the dark, listening to Adrien breathe, feeling the presence of him in a way she hadn't when the screen was up. "This is weird," she said. "You want to put it back up?" "No, just acknowledging it's weird. Everything about this is weird." "True." She turned on her side to face his direction even though she couldn't see him in the dark. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "When did you know? That you had feelings for me?" Adrien was quiet for so long she thought maybe he'd fallen asleep. Then, "Remember that barbecue Marcus threw for Eli's birthday 2 years ago?" "Vaguely." "You were in the kitchen making hamburger patties and Ivy came in crying because she'd scraped her knee. You dropped everything, picked her up, cleaned the cut, put on a Band-Aid with dinosaurs on it. Then you made up some story about how dinosaurs were the bravest creatures ever, and if she had them on her knee, she'd be brave too. And she believed you, stopped crying immediately." "I remember that." "Marcus was standing next to me watching. He looked at you and said, 'That's why I married her. She makes everything better just by being there.' And I thought, yeah, that's exactly right, and I wished—" He stopped. "What?" "I wished I had someone like that. Someone who could take something broken and make it okay with just their presence. I didn't realize until later that it wasn't someone like you I wanted. It was you." Celeste felt her throat tighten. "Why didn't you say anything?" "You were married to my best friend. I buried it. Pretended it was just admiration or friendship or whatever I could convince myself it was. And then Marcus died and everything got complicated." "Do you feel guilty about loving me when he's gone?" "Sometimes, yeah. But then I remember what he said in the hospital, that he wanted me to take care of you, and I think maybe he knew. Maybe he saw something I didn't want to admit. Maybe he did." They lay there in the quiet, the space between their beds feeling both vast and insignificant. "Good night, Celeste." "Good night." But neither of them slept for a long time. The kids noticed the change before anyone said anything. Ivy came into the bedroom one morning to wake Celeste and stopped short when she saw 2 beds instead of the screen. "Where did the wall go?" she asked. Celeste, still half asleep, tried to formulate an answer. Adrien beat her to it. "We took it down. Didn't need it anymore." "Why?" "Because your mom and I decided we wanted to share the room properly, like married people do." Ivy processed this with the serious expression she got when thinking hard about something. "Are you going to have another baby?" Celeste choked on air. Adrien looked like he'd been hit with a brick. "What?" Celeste managed. "Emma at preschool says when grown-ups share a room, they have babies. Are you going to have one?" "No," Celeste said quickly. "No, sweetheart. We're figuring out how to be a family, that's all." "But you could have one, if you wanted." We're not thinking about that right now." Ivy seemed satisfied with this answer. She climbed into bed with Celeste snuggling against her mother's side. "I like Adrien living here." "You do?" "He fixed my toy elephant, and he makes funny pancakes, and he doesn't get mad when I ask too many questions." Celeste looked over at Adrien. He was smiling. "I like him living here too," Celeste said. Later, after Ivy went downstairs for breakfast, Adrien moved to sit on the edge of Celeste's bed. "That was an interesting morning," he said. 4-year-olds have no filter. "Should we be worried she's going to tell everyone at preschool we're having a baby?" "Probably." Celeste laughed. "Great. Now the whole town is going to think I'm pregnant. Could be worse." "How?" "They could think we're getting divorced." She looked at him. "Are we going to talk about what she said? About babies?" "Do you want to?" "I don't know. It's not something I've thought about. Marcus and I talked about having more kids, but we wanted to wait until Ivy was older, and now—" She trailed off. "Now it's complicated." "Everything is complicated." She picked at the blanket. "What about you? Do you want more kids?" Adrien considered that. "I never thought I'd have the chance. After Sarah died, I figured Eli was it for me. But being here with you and Ivy, it's made me realize I miss this. The family part, the daily chaos. That's not an answer. No, I guess it's not. He took her hand. If you're asking if I'd want to have a child with you someday, the answer is yes. But there's no rush. We've got time to figure out what this is before we add more complications. Celeste squeezed his hand. Okay. Okay? Okay. The first real fight happened 3 weeks later. Adrien came home late from a job that had run over. He was tired and frustrated because the client had changed the specs halfway through and he'd had to redo half the work. He walked into chaos. Ivy and Eli were running through the house screaming about something. Celeste was on the phone, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. Dinner was burning on the stove. Adrien turned off the burner, moved the smoking pan to the sink. The kids ran past him again. "Hey," he said sharply. "Knock it off. Both of you." They stopped, looked at him with wide eyes. "Go to your rooms, now." "But we were just," Eli started. "Now." They went. Celeste hung up her phone and rounded on him. "Don't yell at them like that. They were out of control. They're kids. They were playing. They were running through the house screaming while you were on the phone and dinner was burning. That's not playing. That's chaos. I had it handled." "Did you?" "Because from where I'm standing, nothing was handled." Her eyes flashed. "I've been managing this house by myself for months. I don't need you coming in here acting like I can't control my own child." "Our children. That's the point of this, remember? We're both responsible. Don't lecture me about responsibility. You weren't here. I was working, providing for this family. This family was fine before you got here." The words hung in the air between them, harsh, untrue, said in anger but landing like stones. Adrien's expression shuddered. "Right. Okay." He turned and walked out of the kitchen. Celeste heard his footsteps on the stairs, heard the bedroom door close. She stood there in the kitchen with burned dinner and 2 kids hiding in their rooms, and the sick feeling of having said something she couldn't take back. She went upstairs 20 minutes later, found Adrien sitting on his bed, still in his work clothes, staring at nothing. "I'm sorry," she said from the doorway. "For what?" "For saying we were fine without you. That was cruel and I didn't mean it. Didn't you?" "No." She came into the room, sat on her own bed facing him. "I was frustrated. That call was with Marcus's accountant. There are tax issues with the estate that are going to cost a fortune to resolve. And Ivy's been having nightmares again. And I burned dinner because I was distracted. And then you came home and immediately took over and I snapped. I shouldn't have yelled at the kids. They probably needed it. I've been too soft on Ivy since Marcus died, trying to make up for what she lost by letting her get away with too much. And I've been too hard on Eli because I'm used to it being just us, having to maintain discipline without backup." They sat there in the quiet, 2 people learning how to be partners instead of individuals managing separate lives. "We're going to fight," Adrien said. "That's normal." "I know, I just hate it." "Me too, but we work through it. That's what couples do." "Is that what we are? A couple? Aren't we?" Celeste thought about that, about sharing a room and making decisions together and building something that looked more like a marriage every day. "Yeah," she said. "I guess we are." That night they made up, not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, just with Adrien helping her make sandwiches for dinner and Celeste sitting beside him while they ate and both of them apologizing to the kids for the yelling. Small things, normal things, the kind of things that built a life. May brought rain and the start of something like normalcy. Adrien's things stopped being Adrien's things and just became part of the house. His tools in the garage, his coffee mug in the cabinet, his jacket on the hook by the door. Celeste stopped thinking of rooms as hers and started thinking of them as theirs. They developed routines. Adrien made breakfast on weekdays. Celeste handled dinner. They split school pickup and bedtime duties. On weekends, they worked in the garden together while the kids played in the yard. Eli started calling Celeste Celeste instead of Mrs. Rowan. Ivy started climbing into Adrien's lap when she wanted to be read to. The boundaries that had been so carefully maintained started to blur. One Saturday, Celeste was weeding the vegetable garden when she heard Ivy's voice from the yard. "Dad, Dad, come look at this bug." She looked up. Ivy was running toward Adrien with something cupped in her hands. Adrien knelt down. What have you got? I don't know. It's weird. Is it a beetle? Let me see. Celeste watched them examine whatever Ivy had found, watched Adrien explain something about insects, watched her daughter hang on his every word. Dad. Ivy had called him Dad. Celeste's eyes burned. She looked away, focusing very hard on the weeds in front of her. Adrien found her there 15 minutes later. He sat down in the dirt beside her. You okay? He asked. Did you hear what she called you? Yeah. How do you feel about that? He was quiet for a moment. Honored, terrified, both. She loved Marcus so much, I don't want her to forget him. She won't. We won't let her. He touched her arm. But she's also allowed to love me. Those things don't cancel each other out. I know. Intellectually, I know that. But hearing her call you Dad, too soon? No, just different. She looked at him. She chose that. I didn't ask her to. You didn't ask her to. She just did it. Kids are smart. They know what they need. Yeah, they do. That night, after the kids were in bed, Celeste and Adrien lay in their separate beds talking in the dark. It had become their routine, the time when they were most honest with each other. I've been thinking about something, Celeste said. What? This arrangement, this marriage, it's working. Okay? I mean really working. We're not just coexisting. We're actually building something. The kids are happy. We're happy. So maybe we should stop calling it an arrangement. What should we call it? A marriage, a real one. She heard him shift. I thought that's what we were already doing. We were trying. Now I think we've actually done it. Somewhere between the custody battle and the burned dinners and Ivy calling you Dad, we became real. So what changes? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Maybe we just acknowledge what this is instead of being surprised by it. Adrien got out of his bed, crossed the space between them, sat on the edge of hers. Come here, he said. She sat up and he pulled her into his arms. They'd hugged before, brief touches, comfort in hard moments. But this was different. This was choosing to be close. I love you, he said into her hair. I know I said it in court, but I'm saying it now because I want to, not because a lawyer is asking. I love you too, and that still feels strange to say. Because of Marcus? Because of everything. Because I didn't expect this. Didn't think I'd ever feel this way about anyone again. But you do? I do. He kissed her. Not like that first kiss. This one was deeper, more certain, the kiss of two people who decided to commit to something instead of just letting it happen. When they pulled apart, Celeste was breathless. Stay here tonight, she said, in this bed, with me. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. So he did. They lay together in the dark, her back against his chest, his arm around her waist. It should have felt awkward. They'd only been physically intimate a handful of times, but instead it felt right, like this was where they were always supposed to end up. Adrien? She said into the darkness. Thank you for showing up that night, for telling me about Marcus, for staying. I'd do it again, every time. Even knowing how complicated it would get? Especially knowing that. She turned in his arms to face him. I need to tell you something about Marcus. Okay. He left me a letter after Ivy was born. I told you about it, but I didn't tell you everything it said. What did it say? She took a breath. He gave you his blessing, to be with me, to build a life with us. He said if anything happened to him, he wanted you to step in, not just as a friend, as more. Adrien went very still. He knew. I think he did, or at least suspected. He knew how he felt about you, trusted you completely. And he knew me, knew I'd need someone eventually. That's a hell of a thing to leave in a letter. I know, but I needed you to hear it, to know that this isn't a betrayal, that Marcus wanted this. Did he say that specifically? He said, don't mourn me forever. Build a life, be happy. Let Adrien help you. And then he said, I'm giving you both my blessing for whatever comes next. Adrien's arms tightened around her. I wish he was here to see this, to see Ivy calling me Dad. to see us actually making this work. Me too. But I think he knew. Somehow he knew it would happen like this. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, two separate people becoming one unit. When Celeste woke in the morning, she was alone. Panic flared for a moment before she heard voices downstairs. Adrien's deep rumble, the kids laughing. She got up and went to the landing, looked down to see Adrien making pancakes while Eli and Ivy set the table. A normal Saturday morning, a family doing family things. Ivy looked up and saw her. "Mom, Adrien's making the funny faces again." Mom. Not Mama. Mom. Her daughter was growing up, moving through grief and finding joy again. It hurt, and it was beautiful at the same time. Adrien looked up at her and smiled. "Coffee's ready." "Thanks." She came downstairs and slipped into the routine, poured coffee, helped with breakfast, settled at the table with her strange, unexpected family. This was her life now. And it was good. The letter from Gloria arrived in June. Celeste found it in the mail, recognized the handwriting immediately. She almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. She opened it standing in the kitchen. "Dear Celeste," it began, "I owe you an apology." Celeste blinked, reread that line, kept going. "Richard and I have spent the last few months in grief counseling. Our therapist has helped us see that our actions regarding Ivy were not about her best interests, but about our own need to hold on to Marcus. We were trying to control something, anything, in a situation where we had no control. We were wrong to question your fitness as a mother. We were wrong to pursue custody. We were wrong about many things. I have watched the videos you send of Ivy. I see her smiling again, laughing, playing. I see her calling Adrien Dad, and I see him being patient and kind with her. I see what we couldn't see before. That you have built something good from something terrible. We would like to visit, not to make demands or criticisms, simply to see our granddaughter, to be a part of her life in whatever way you'll allow. We understand if you need time. We understand if you say no. But we are asking, humbly, for a chance to be better grandparents than we were in-laws. With regret and hope, Gloria." Celeste read it twice. Then she handed it to Adrien, who'd just come in from the garage. He read it silently, looked up at her. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to tell her to go to hell, but part of me thinks Ivy deserves to know her grandparents, even if they're complicated. They're family, for better or worse. So I should let them visit? I think you should do what feels right, not what you think you should do, not what's fair or generous or politically correct, what feels right in your gut." Celeste thought about that, about Ivy growing up knowing her father's parents, about second chances and forgiveness and the messy work of family. "Okay," she said, "I'll invite them for a weekend. See how it goes." Adrien nodded. "You want me to be scarce? Give you space?" "No, I want you here, as my husband, as Ivy's stepfather, as part of this family. They need to see what we've built." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Gloria and Richard arrived on a Friday evening in late June. Celeste and Adrien stood on the porch, watching them get out of their rental car. Gloria looked smaller than Celeste remembered, frailer. Richard looked tired. They climbed the porch steps slowly. There was an awkward moment where nobody knew what to do. Then Gloria said, "Thank you for letting us come." "You're welcome." Another pause. Then Ivy burst out the front door, Eli right behind her. "Grandma! Grandpa!" Gloria's face crumpled. She knelt down and Ivy ran into her arms. Richard bent down too, gathering his granddaughter close. Celeste felt Adrien's hand find hers. She squeezed it. This was going to be okay. Maybe not perfect, but okay. That weekend was strange and tense and ultimately healing. Gloria and Richard were careful, deferential. They asked permission before everything. They praised the house, the garden, the way Ivy was growing. They thanked Adrien for the work he'd done on the property. On Saturday night, after the kids were in bed, the 4 adults sat on the back porch with wine and beer. "I need to say something," Gloria said. "Not just to Celeste. To you too, Adrien." Adrien nodded, waiting. "I was cruel to you, in court and before. I implied terrible things about your motives and your character." I was wrong. You've been good to Ivy, good to Celeste. Marcus would have been grateful. Thank you, Adrien said quietly. Do you really love her, Celeste? Yes. And the marriage is real, not just for custody? It's real. Gloria took a long drink of wine. Then I'm happy for you both. Truly. Marcus would want Celeste to be happy. He'd want Ivy to have a father who loves her, even if that father isn't him. Richard spoke for the first time in an hour. We miss our son. We'll always miss him. But we're glad his family is being taken care of. Celeste felt tears threatening. He loved you both. Even when things were difficult, he never stopped loving you. We know, and we never stopped loving him. Gloria looked at her. Can we start over? Not forget what happened, but move forward? I'd like that. They sat there as the sun went down, four people who'd hurt each other finding their way towards something like peace. When Gloria and Richard left on Sunday, Ivy cried. Real tears, the kind that said she'd actually enjoyed having them there. Can they come back? She asked Celeste. If you want them to. I do. They're my grandparents. Yes, they are. That night, Celeste stood in Ivy's room watching her daughter sleep. The nightmares had stopped. The crying jags were rare now. She was healing. They all were. Adrien appeared in the doorway. You okay? Yeah, just thinking about how much has changed. For the better? Mostly. He came to stand beside her. They looked down at Ivy together. She called me Dad again today, Adrien said, in front of Gloria and Richard. I heard. How did that feel? Like a gift I didn't deserve. You deserve it. You've earned it. He put his arm around her waist. She leaned into him. We did it, she said. We actually built a family out of this mess. We did. Thank you for being patient, for staying, for loving us even when it was complicated. It's still complicated, but it's ours. Yeah, Adrien said, pulling her closer. It's ours. Summer arrived properly in July, bringing heat that made the house feel smaller and days that stretched long and lazy. Adrien started coming home earlier, wanting to make the most of the light. They'd eat dinner outside on the back porch, the kids running through the sprinkler while the adults talked about nothing important. It was during one of those evenings that Celeste realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd thought about the custody battle, or the wedding at the clerk's office, or any of the reasons they'd started this in the first place. Now there was just this. Dinners and laughter and Adrien's hand on her knee while they watched fireflies blink in the growing darkness. I need to tell you something, she said one night after the kids had gone to bed. They were in their room, getting ready for bed in the comfortable silence they'd developed. Adrien looked up from where he was setting his alarm. That sounds serious. It's not bad, just something I've been thinking about. He sat on his bed. She sat on hers. Old habits. Even though most nights they ended up in the same bed anyway. I want to sell the company, she said. Adrien blinked. What? Marcus's company, the commercial real estate development firm. I've been running it from home since he died, but my heart's not in it. It was his dream, not mine. And I keep thinking about what I actually want to do with my life now that I have a choice. What do you want to do? I don't know yet. That's the terrifying part. For the last 10 years, my identity was Marcus's wife. Now I get to figure out who I am without that. And it's scary and exciting, and I wanted you to know before I made any decisions. Adrien moved to sit beside her on her bed. How much is the company worth? A lot, more than we'd ever need. Enough that I could do something meaningful with it. Like what? There's a foundation Marcus wanted to start, for families who lose parents suddenly. Financial support, grief counseling, legal assistance with custody issues. All the things we struggled with, I could actually make that happen. That sounds like you. Does it? Yeah, helping people, making something good out of something terrible. That's exactly you. She leaned against his shoulder. I'm scared I'll mess it up, that I'll sell the company and regret it, that I'll start this foundation and fail. You might, but you'll never know if you don't try. Is that your philosophy on everything? Pretty much. He kissed the top of her head. Do what feels right. I'll support whatever you decide. 2 weeks later, she put the company up for sale. The offers came in fast. Marcus had built something valuable. Within a month, she had a buyer and more money than she knew what to do with. She started the foundation in August, called it the Marcus Rowan Family Support Fund. Gloria and Richard donated a substantial amount. Adrien helped her set up the office in town. Eli and Ivy helped her pick out furniture. It felt right, like she was honoring Marcus while also building something new. The first family they helped was a single father whose wife had died in a car accident. He was drowning in medical bills and funeral costs and about to lose custody of his 2 daughters because he couldn't afford proper childcare while working 2 jobs. Celeste sat across from him in her new office and saw herself 6 months ago. Desperate, terrified, trying to hold everything together with duct tape and willpower. "We can help," she told him. "That's what we're here for." She walked him through the financial assistance, connected him with a lawyer who'd handle the custody issues pro bono, set him up with grief counseling for him and his daughters. When he left, he had tears in his eyes. "You saved my family," he said. Celeste thought about Adrien showing up with groceries, about him fixing the furnace at dawn, about all the small ways he'd saved her family when she couldn't do it alone. "Someone did the same for me," she said. "I'm just passing it forward." That night she told Adrien about it, about the father and his daughters, and how helping them had felt like the most important thing she'd ever done. "I think I found my purpose," she said. "After all this time wondering what I was supposed to do with my life, this is it." "I'm proud of you," Adrien said. "For what?" "For taking your grief and turning it into something that helps people. That's not easy." "You did it too. You took your promise to Marcus and turned it into a family. We did that together." "Yeah, we did." September brought the kids back to school. Ivy started kindergarten. Eli started 4th grade. The house felt empty during the day in a way it never had before. Celeste found herself wandering into Adrien's workspace in the garage more often, watching him work on projects, asking questions about electrical systems and building codes and things she'd never cared about before but cared about now because they mattered to him. "You're bored," he said one afternoon, looking up from where he was rewiring an old lamp. "I'm not bored, I'm between meetings. You've been standing there for 20 minutes watching me strip wire. That's boredom. Maybe I just like watching you work." He raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? You're very focused. It's attractive." "Is that so?" She walked over to him, took the wire strippers out of his hand, set them on the workbench. "Very attractive." He kissed her. She kissed him back. They were getting good at this. At being married not just legally, but in all the ways that mattered. "The kids won't be home for 2 hours, she said against his mouth. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we go upstairs and take advantage of an empty house." "Mrs. Vale, are you propositioning me in my own garage?" She loved when he called her that. Mrs. Vale. She'd kept Rowan legally for the foundation, but at home she was Mrs. Vale, Adrien's wife. "I absolutely am." They went upstairs. Later, lying in bed with the afternoon sun coming through the windows, Celeste traced patterns on Adrien's chest. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Always. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Marcus hadn't died? If we'd just stayed friends who saw each other at barbecues?" "Sometimes. Why?" "Because part of me feels guilty. Like we're happy because he's gone. Like our happiness is built on his death." Adrien was quiet for a moment. Then, "I think our happiness is built on choosing each other despite impossible circumstances. Marcus's death was the catalyst, but what we did with it, that was our choice. We could have done the bare minimum, could have stayed in our separate corners. We chose this." "You really believe that?" "I do. And I think Marcus would be happy we chose it. He loved us both. He'd want us to be happy." Celeste thought about the letter, about Marcus's blessing, about everything that had led them here. "I miss him," she said. "I love you and I'm happy and I still miss him." "Is that allowed?" "Of course it is. Missing him and loving me aren't mutually exclusive." "Sometimes I feel like I'm betraying him by being this happy." "You're not betraying anyone by living your life, by loving again, by building something new." He turned to face her. "Celeste, Marcus is gone. That's tragic and unfair and it breaks my heart. But you're still here, the kids are still here. We get to keep living. That's not a betrayal. That's survival." She kissed him. "I love you. I love you too." They stayed there until it was almost time to pick up the kids. Then they got dressed and went back to their regular lives. But something had shifted. Some final piece of guilt had been put down. October was Ivy's 5th birthday. Celeste wanted to make it special. The first birthday since Marcus died. The first one with their new family configuration. She went overboard planning. Dinosaur theme. Elaborate cake. Invitations to half of Ivy's kindergarten class. The morning of the party, she was in the kitchen frantically trying to make dinosaur-shaped cookies when Adrien found her close to tears. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Everything. The cookies won't hold their shape. The decorations look cheap. I forgot to confirm with the bounce house company. This is a disaster. It's a 5-year-old's birthday party, not a state dinner. It's Ivy's first birthday without her father. It needs to be perfect." Adrien gently took the cookie cutter out of her hand. "It needs to be fun, that's all. Ivy doesn't care if the cookies are perfect. She cares that her family is here and people are celebrating her. I just want her to be happy." She is happy. Look around. She's got a home that feels safe, a family that loves her, a mom who's trying so hard to make everything perfect that she's literally crying over cookies. That kid is happy. Celeste laughed through her tears. "I'm being ridiculous. You're being a mom. It's allowed." The party was chaotic and loud and imperfect. Half the kindergartners were afraid of the bounce house. Someone spilled juice on the new carpet. The cake toppled slightly when they were lighting the candles. And Ivy loved every second of it. She ran around in her dinosaur costume laughing with her friends. She opened presents with genuine excitement. When it came time to blow out the candles, she looked around at everyone singing and her face was pure joy. Later, after all the guests had left and the kids were crashed on the couch watching a movie, Celeste and Adrien cleaned up the wreckage. "Thank you," she said, "for talking me down this morning." "Any time. This is the first birthday Marcus has missed. I wanted it to be perfect because he's not here to see it. I know. But he'd be proud of what you did, of what we've built." That night, after Ivy was asleep, Celeste went to Marcus's study. She hadn't spent much time there since the wedding. It felt too much like trespassing in someone else's space. But tonight, she sat at his desk and opened the drawer where she'd kept his letter. "Read it again by lamplight." "I hope you're okay with this," she said to the empty room. "With me and Adrien, with our weird little family. I think you would be. I hope you would be." The room didn't answer. But it didn't feel wrong either. She put the letter back and turned off the light. November brought an unexpected problem. Eli was struggling in school. His grades had dropped. His teacher called to say he was withdrawn in class, not participating, not turning in homework. Adrien sat him down one evening to talk about it. "What's going on, buddy? Mrs. Patterson says you're not yourself lately." Eli shrugged, stared at his hands. "Come on, talk to me. Whatever it is, we can figure it out." "Do you love Celeste more than you loved Mom?" The question hit Adrien like a physical blow. He sat back in his chair. "What? Mom's been dead for 6 years. You've only known Celeste for like half a year. But you love her more, don't you? Because she's here and Mom isn't." "Eli, that's not—" "I barely remember what Mom looked like without looking at pictures. And sometimes I forget what her voice sounded like. And I feel bad because she was my mom, and I'm supposed to remember, but she's gone, and Celeste is here, and it feels like we're replacing her." Adrien pulled his son into his arms, felt him shake. "We're not replacing anyone. Your mom was my wife. I loved her with everything I had. Losing her almost destroyed me. You remember how bad it was." Eli nodded against his chest. "Celeste is different. Not better. Not more, just different. And loving her doesn't mean I stopped loving your mom. People's hearts are bigger than we think. There's room for both." "But what about me? Am I supposed to love Celeste like a mom? Because I don't. I can't. That feels wrong." "You don't have to. Celeste isn't trying to replace your mother. She's just trying to be part of our family in whatever way works for you." "What if I never love her like that?" "Then you don't. You love her however you love her. There's no right way to do this, Eli. We're all just figuring it out as we go." Eli pulled back, wiped his eyes. "I like her. I like living here. I like Ivy. I just feel guilty." "For what? For being happy when Mom is dead? For having a new family when the old one got broken?" Adrien's heart cracked. "Your mom would want you to be happy. She'd want us both to be happy, and she'd like Celeste. They'd have been friends, I think." "Really? Really? Your mom was tough and smart and didn't take garbage from anyone. Know who else is like that?" Eli smiled slightly. Celeste. Exactly. That night, Adrien told Celeste about the conversation. They were in bed, her head on his chest, his arm around her. I wondered when something like this would come up, she said. He likes you. He's just struggling with what that means. I get it. Ivy does the same thing. One day she's calling me Mom, and the next she's calling me Celeste because she feels guilty about Marcus. How do we help them through it? I don't know. Keep being patient? Keep showing them it's okay to love people even when it's complicated? Sounds like what we've been doing all along. Yeah, I guess it is. The next day, Celeste asked Eli if he wanted to help her with the foundation. They had a family coming in who needed help organizing donations, and Eli was great at that kind of thing. He agreed. Spent the afternoon sorting through donated clothes and toys, talked to Celeste about his mom while they worked. She liked to organize stuff too, he said. She had this whole system for the garage. Dad could never find anything after she died. Tell me about her. So he did, and Celeste listened, really listened, asked questions, honored the memory of a woman she'd never met but who'd shaped the boy working beside her. When Adrien picked him up that evening, Eli seemed lighter. How'd it go? Adrien asked. Good. Celeste let me talk about Mom. She didn't get weird about it. She's good like that. Yeah, she is. December brought snow and the approach of their first anniversary. Not their real anniversary, the one in February when they'd gotten married. The anniversary of the night Marcus died. The night everything changed. Celeste wasn't sure how to mark it. It felt wrong to celebrate, but ignoring it felt wrong too. She was sitting in the foundation office staring at the calendar when Adrien called. Hey, you want to get lunch? Can't. I'm drowning in grant applications. Take a break. I'll bring sandwiches to your office. You don't have to. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He showed up with sandwiches from the deli and coffee from the shop she liked. They ate in her office while she told him about the families they were helping. There's this mother, she said. 3 kids under 7. Her husband died of a heart attack 2 months ago. No life insurance, no savings. She's about to lose the house. Can you help? We're going to try. But it's overwhelming sometimes. There are so many people who need help and we can't save everyone. You save who you can. That matters. She picked at her sandwich. It's almost a year since Marcus died. I know. I don't know what to do about it. Do we acknowledge it, have some kind of memorial, pretend it's just another day? What feels right? Nothing feels right. Everything about this is complicated. Adrien thought for a moment. What if we did something as a family? Not a funeral or a sad memorial, just something that honors Marcus while also acknowledging where we are now. Like what? We could go to his favorite place, say, the overlook on Route 7 where he proposed to you. Bring the kids, share stories, let everyone remember him in their own way. Celeste felt tears threatening. He loved that spot. I know. Okay, yeah, let's do that. They went on a Saturday. The 4 of them piled into Adrien's truck and drove to the overlook. It was cold and clear, the mountains visible in every direction. They stood at the railing where Marcus had proposed 8 years earlier, where he'd gotten down on one knee and promised Celeste forever. Tell us about Daddy, Ivy said. What was he like? Celeste and Adrien took turns sharing stories about Marcus's terrible sense of direction, about how he couldn't cook to save his life, about his laugh that filled entire rooms, about how much he loved his daughter. He used to say you were his greatest accomplishment, Celeste told Ivy. Not the company, not the money, you. He was so proud of you. I miss him. Me too, baby. Every day. Eli spoke up. Uncle Marcus taught me how to throw a football. My mom was sick and my dad was working all the time, and Uncle Marcus would come over and we'd throw the ball in the yard. He made me feel normal when everything was falling apart. Adrien's eyes were wet. He was good at that, making people feel less alone. They stood there together as the sun started to set. A family built from pieces of broken families, honoring someone who wasn't there but whose presence shaped everything. On the way home, Ivy fell asleep in the back seat. Eli put in his headphones. Adrien reached over and took Celeste's hand. You okay? He asked. Yeah, that was good. Hard, but good. Marcus would have liked it, knowing we were all together. I think he did know, somehow. She squeezed his hand. Thank you for suggesting it. We'll do it every year. Make it a tradition. Keep him present in our lives. I'd like that. That night, after the kids were in bed, Celeste found the letter one more time. But this time, she didn't read it alone. She showed it to Adrien. I've never shown this to anyone, she said, but I think you should see it, all of it. Adrien read it slowly. When he finished, his hands were shaking. He knew, Adrien said. He really knew this would happen. Maybe not exactly this, but something like it. He gave us his blessing. He did? Adrien folded the letter carefully, handed it back. That means everything, to know he wanted this, that we're not betraying him by being together. We're honoring him, by being happy, by taking care of his family the way he asked. Yeah, we are. Christmas came with more snow and chaos and the kind of joy that comes from children believing in magic. Ivy wrote a letter to Santa asking for a baby brother or sister. Celeste found it on the kitchen counter where Ivy had left it to mail. She showed it to Adrien that night. Well, he said, that's direct. What do we tell her? The truth? That babies are complicated and we're still figuring out our family. She's 5. She won't understand complicated. Then we tell her maybe someday. Which is the truth. Celeste looked at the letter, at Ivy's careful printing, at the way she'd drawn a picture of their family with a small addition. Would you want that? She asked. Another child? With you? Yeah, I would. Even though we've got our hands full already? Maybe because of that. This family we've built, it works. Adding to it seems like the natural next step. We've only been really married for 6 months. We've been living as a family for almost a year. We've been through custody battles and grief and learning how to be parents together. If we can handle all that, we can handle another kid. Celeste thought about that, about a baby that would be both of theirs, a piece of this new life they'd built. Not yet, she said, but maybe soon, when things settle. Whenever you're ready. You're very patient. I've got time. On Christmas morning, Ivy opened her presents and didn't mention the baby request. She was too excited about the dinosaur encyclopedia and the art supplies and the dress-up clothes. But later, while they were making dinner, she said to Celeste, Santa didn't bring me a baby. No, sweetie, babies don't work that way. How do they work? Celeste looked at Adrien for help. He was suddenly very interested in chopping vegetables. When two people love each other very much and decide they want to have a baby together, sometimes it happens. But it takes time and planning, and it's not something Santa can bring. Do you and Adrien love each other very much? Yes, we do. So you could have a baby? Someday. Maybe. If that's what we decide. Ivy seemed satisfied. She went back to playing with her new toys. Adrien leaned over. Well handled. I'm going to be fielding questions about babies for the next year, aren't I? Probably. Great. But she was smiling. January brought quiet, the kind of quiet that settled over a house after the holidays ended and routine returned. It was during one of those quiet evenings that Celeste realized something. She was happy, not pretending to be happy, not finding moments of happiness in the grief. Actually, genuinely happy. She was sitting on the couch with a book while Adrien and the kids played a board game on the floor. Eli was accusing Ivy of cheating. Ivy was denying it loudly. Adrien was trying to referee while also laughing. This was her life. This beautiful, chaotic, imperfect life. Marcus had been dead for almost a year, and she'd survived. More than survived. She'd built something new. What are you thinking about? Adrien asked, looking over at her. How lucky I am. Yeah? Yeah. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, they lay in bed together. Not in separate beds anymore. They'd pushed them together months ago and stopped pretending they needed the separation. I've been thinking about something, Celeste said. Should I be worried? No, it's good, I think. She turned to face him. I want to have a baby with you. Adrien went very still. You're serious? I'm serious, not right now, but soon. Maybe this spring. I want to have a child that's ours, that we create together, not because we have to, not because of grief or custody battles or any other reason except that we want to. Are you sure? I'm sure I love you. I'm sure I want to build a life with you. I'm sure I want our family to grow, yes. I'm sure. Adrien kissed her, long and deep and full of promise. Then let's do it, he said. Let's have a baby. Really? Really, I love you. I love this life we've built. I want all of it with you. She kissed him back. And for the first time in a year, the future felt like something to look forward to, instead of something to survive. Spring came early. By March, the snow was melting and the garden was starting to show signs of life. Celeste planted vegetables with the kids while Adrien repaired the fence. Normal Saturday afternoon activities. The kind of boring, beautiful moments that made a life. It was during one of those afternoons that Ivy came running over with a piece of paper. Look what I made! Celeste wiped dirt from her hands and took the paper. It was a drawing. 4 stick figures labeled Mom, Dad, Eli, and Ivy. And next to them, a smaller figure with a question mark. What's this? Celeste asked. Our family, and the baby that's maybe coming. Celeste looked at Adrien. He raised his eyebrows. How do you know about that? Celeste asked. I heard you and Adrien talking. You said you wanted a baby, so I drew one. She pointed at the question mark. But I don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet, so I just put a question mark. Eli looked up from where he was helping Adrien. We're getting a baby? Maybe, Adrien said. Nothing's certain yet. But you're trying, Eli asked. We're discussing it. Cool, I've always wanted a little brother. Could be a sister, Ivy pointed out. Either way. The kids went back to their activities like this was the most normal conversation in the world. Celeste and Adrien looked at each other across the garden. So much for keeping it secret, Adrien said. They're smarter than we give them credit for. Always are. That night, Celeste stood in what would be the nursery if they had a baby. It was currently Marcus's old study, still filled with his books and papers. Adrien found her there. You okay? He asked. I'm ready to pack this up. His things. I've been holding on to them because letting go felt like losing him all over again. But I think it's time. You're sure? I'm sure. He's not in these things. He's in Ivy, in the foundation, in the memories we keep alive. But these things, they're just things. And I need the space for what comes next. They spent the next weekend packing up Marcus's study. Books donated to the library, papers sorted and filed, personal items boxed up for Ivy when she was older. When they were done, the room was empty, ready for a new purpose. Looks different, Adrien said. It feels right, like we're making room for the future. What color should we paint it? Let's wait and see. No point in planning too far ahead. But they both knew what this room would become. It was just a matter of time. By May, Celeste was pregnant. She took the test alone in the bathroom one morning while everyone else was asleep, watched the second line appear, sat on the edge of the tub staring at it. A baby. A real baby. Hers and Adrien's. She went downstairs and found him making coffee. Hey, she said. Morning, you're up early. I took a test. He turned, coffee forgotten. And? Positive. Adrien crossed the kitchen in 3 steps and pulled her into his arms. Really? Really? We're having a baby. We're having a baby. He kissed her, then he kissed her stomach. Then he kissed her again. How do you feel? He asked. Terrified. Excited. Like everything just got real in a way it wasn't before. We're going to be great at this. You can't know that. I can. We've already raised 2 kids through impossible circumstances. We can handle one more. She laughed. One more. Like it's that simple. It is that simple and that complicated and perfect. They told the kids that evening over dinner. We have some news, Celeste said. Both kids looked up. You're having a baby, Ivy shouted. Celeste blinked. How did you? You've been tired a lot, and you threw up yesterday. And you keep touching your stomach. I'm not dumb. Apparently not. Celeste looked at Eli. You okay with this? He shrugged. Yeah, could be cool. Just cool? I mean, babies are loud and messy, but it's also kind of nice, having a little brother or sister. You'd be the oldest, Adrien pointed out. That's a big responsibility. I know, I can handle it. Ivy was already planning. We need to paint the nursery yellow and get stuffed animals. And make sure it has dinosaurs because everyone needs dinosaurs. We'll figure it out together, Celeste said. All 4 of us. 5 of us, once the baby comes. That night, lying in bed with Adrien's hand on her stomach, Celeste thought about how far they'd come, from a phone call at 2:14 in the morning to this moment, from grief and desperation to joy and hope. "Thank you," she said into the darkness. "For what?" "For showing up, for staying, for loving us even when it was hard. Thank you for letting me, for taking a chance on this weird arrangement. It's not weird anymore. No, it's not." Summer arrived again, bringing with it the first anniversary of their wedding, not the sad anniversary in February, the one in April when they'd stood in the clerk's office and promised to protect Ivy. Celeste was 4 months pregnant and showing. They decided to celebrate with a real ceremony, nothing huge, just their friends and family, a chance to say vows that meant something different than they had a year ago. The ceremony was in the backyard on a warm Saturday afternoon. Ivy and Eli stood beside them as they exchanged rings they'd picked out together. "I promise to love you," Adrien said, "not just today, but every day after, through the hard times and the good times, through crying babies and teenage drama and whatever else life throws at us. You and the kids, you're my family, my life, my everything." Celeste's turn. "I promise to trust you, to let you in even when it's scary, to build this life with you even when I don't know what I'm doing. You saved us when we needed saving. Now I get to spend the rest of my life being grateful for that." They kissed. Their friends cheered. Eli and Ivy high-fived. It wasn't a traditional ceremony. Nothing about them was traditional, but it was theirs. Gloria and Richard were there, had flown up for the occasion. After the ceremony, Gloria pulled Celeste aside. "I owe you an apology," she said. "Another one, for everything last year, for trying to take Ivy, for not seeing what you were building here. You were grieving. That's no excuse. I was cruel, and I was wrong." She looked at Adrien, who was across the yard with the kids. "He's good to her, to both of you. Marcus would be pleased." "I think he would. I'm glad you found happiness again, after everything." "Me too." That night, after everyone had gone home and the kids were asleep, Celeste and Adrien cleaned up the yard together. "Good day?" he asked. "The best. Even with my stumbling through the vows?" "Especially with that. It was perfect because it was real." They worked in comfortable silence, putting away chairs and picking up trash. "You know what I realized today?" Celeste said. "What?" "I'm not afraid anymore. Of losing people. Of things falling apart. Of the future. I'm just happy, present, ready for whatever comes next." "That's growth. That's you, this family, this life we've built." She put down the trash bag and walked over to him. "I love you, Adrien Vale. I love you too, Celeste Vale. I didn't change my name." "You did in my head." She laughed and kissed him under the stars. The baby came in October, right before Ivy's 6th birthday. A girl. 8 pounds, 3 ounces, healthy lungs, and a full head of dark hair. They named her Sarah, after Adrien's first wife, after the woman who'd given him Eli, after someone who deserved to be honored. Celeste held her daughter in the hospital bed while Adrien sat beside them, and the kids met their sister. "She's so small," Ivy whispered. "You were this small once," Celeste said. "I was not. I was born big." "You were born average, but nice try." Eli reached out and touched Sarah's hand. She gripped his finger reflexively. "She's strong," he said. "She's a Vale," Adrien said. "Of course she's strong." That night, after visiting hours ended and the kids went home with Gloria and Richard, Celeste and Adrien sat in the quiet hospital room with their daughter. "We did it," Celeste said. "We made a whole person. We did. She's perfect. She really is." Sarah made a little noise, not quite crying, just announcing her presence. "Hi, baby girl," Celeste said softly. "Welcome to the family. You've got a brother who's going to teach you how to build things, and a sister who's going to teach you about dinosaurs. And parents who are going to love you so much it's probably going to be embarrassing when you're a teenager." Adrien kissed Celeste's temple. "You're going to be a great mom to her. You already are. We're going to be great parents, together. Yeah, we are." They sat there holding their daughter while outside the world kept turning. But inside that hospital room, everything was perfect. 6 months later, on a random Tuesday afternoon, Celeste was at the foundation office when she got a call from Ivy's school. "Mrs. Vale? This is Principal Morrison." Celeste's heart jumped. "Is Ivy okay?" "She's fine, but we need you to come in. There's been an incident." Celeste drove to the school with Sarah in the car seat, trying not to panic. Found Ivy sitting in the principal's office looking defiant. "What happened?" Celeste asked. "There was a fight at recess," the principal said. "Ivy punched another student." "You what?" "He said my family was weird," Ivy burst out. "He said I have 2 dads and one of them died and that's not normal, so I punched him." Celeste didn't know whether to be angry or proud. "Honey, we don't hit people," she said. "But he was mean about Daddy, about our family." "I know, but violence isn't the answer." "What is the answer?" "Good question." Celeste looked at the principal. "Can I have a moment with my daughter?" "Of course." When they were alone, Celeste knelt down to Ivy's level. "Listen to me. Our family is different. We've got a dad who died, a stepdad who stepped in, a baby sister, a stepbrother. We're not traditional, and some people are going to have opinions about that. But it's not fair. No, it's not. But punching people doesn't make it better. What makes it better is knowing that our family works, that we love each other, that we're happy. Who cares what anyone else thinks? Daddy would have cared. He would have been mad that kid was mean. Daddy would have taught you how to use your words instead of your fists, how to stand up for yourself without hurting people." Ivy thought about that. "Did I hurt him bad?" "Just a bloody nose. He'll be fine." "Am I in trouble?" "Yes, but I also understand why you did it. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize to that boy, not for defending our family, but for hitting him. Then you're going to serve whatever punishment the school gives you. And then we're going to talk about better ways to handle things when people are cruel. Okay?" They dealt with the school. Ivy apologized, got 3 days of detention, learned a valuable lesson about conflict resolution. That night at dinner, Celeste told Adrien about it. "She punched a kid?" Eli said. "That's awesome." "It's not awesome," Celeste corrected. "It's assault." "But she was defending the family." "There are better ways to defend the family." Adrien hid a smile. "What did the other kids say?" Celeste told him. "Well," Adrien said carefully, "I don't condone violence, but I appreciate the loyalty." "Adrien, I'm going to have a talk with her about appropriate responses. But yeah, I'm a little proud." Celeste wanted to argue, but she was a little proud too. That night, after the kids were in bed and Sarah was sleeping in her crib, Celeste and Adrien stood in the nursery together. "Our family is weird," Celeste said. "Yeah, it is. But it works. It really does." She leaned against him. "A year and a half ago, I couldn't imagine this. Being happy, having another child, building a life that felt full instead of empty. What changed? You, this, all of it." She turned to face him. "You know what Marcus used to say? That the best things in life come from the worst circumstances. That you can't appreciate joy without knowing grief." Sounds like Marcus. He was right. I wouldn't choose what happened, wouldn't choose to lose him, but what came after, this family, this life, I choose that every time. Me too. They stood there in the quiet, watching their daughter sleep, thinking about the family they'd built from broken pieces. 2 years after Marcus died, Celeste stood in the foundation office looking at the numbers. They'd helped over 200 families, prevented dozens of custody battles, provided grief counseling to hundreds of children. She'd taken the worst thing that had ever happened to her and turned it into something that helped people. That afternoon, she came home to find Adrien in the garage teaching Eli and Ivy how to build a bookshelf. Sarah was in her playpen, banging on a toy piano. "Hey," Adrien called when he saw her. "How was work?" "Good. Great, actually. We just got approved for a grant that'll let us expand to 3 more states." "That's amazing." She walked over and kissed him. "I'm proud of us, of what we've built. All of it." "Me too." That night, the whole family went to the Overlook. Their annual tradition, honoring Marcus, remembering what they'd lost while celebrating what they'd gained. Ivy, now 6, told stories about her father that she barely remembered but had heard often enough to make them real. Eli talked about Uncle Marcus teaching him to throw a football. Adrien shared memories of his best friend. Celeste held Sarah and talked about the man who'd loved her first. He'd be happy we're here, Celeste said. Together, making this work. Yeah, Adrien agreed. He would. They stood there as the sun set over the mountains. A family that shouldn't have worked, but did. A family built on grief and necessity and love that had snuck up on them when they weren't looking. On the drive home, Sarah fell asleep. Ivy and Eli argued about something meaningless in the back seat. Adrien held Celeste's hand. You know what I realized today? Celeste said. What? I'm not the same person I was when Marcus died. That Celeste was drowning, barely holding on, terrified of everything. And now? Now I'm someone who runs a foundation, who has 3 kids, who married her late husband's best friend and made it work. I'm stronger than I thought I could be. You always were. You just needed the chance to prove it. When they got home, they put the kids to bed together. Sarah in her crib, Ivy in her room with the dinosaur wallpaper, Eli in his room with his books and building projects. Then they went to their room, the room they'd started sharing out of necessity and now couldn't imagine being apart in. I love you, Celeste said as they got into bed. I love you too. Not because you saved us, not because you were there when I needed someone. Just because you're you. Adrien pulled her close. That's all I ever wanted, to be loved for who I am instead of what I can do. You're loved by me, by the kids, by this whole chaotic family we've built. Best thing I ever did was show up at your door that night. Best thing I ever did was let you stay. They fell asleep tangled together. 2 broken people who'd found a way to be whole. A family built on loss that had become something beautiful. And somewhere Celeste liked to think Marcus was watching, proud of what they'd built, happy that his daughter was loved, grateful that his best friend had kept his promise, the promise to protect his family, the promise that had turned into something neither of them expected but both of them needed. A family, a life, a love that had grown from grief into something that looked a lot like forever.